The moment her mute daughter spoke for the first time at the playground CEO, Sophia Lane felt her entire world shift. But it wasn't her voice that broke the silence. It was a stranger's gentle magic. This is the story of how a chance encounter between two broken families became a miracle of healing. If you've ever witnessed the power of unexpected kindness, stay with me until the end. And please comment below where you're watching from. I love seeing how far these stories of hope can travel. The spring afternoon hung heavy with the kind of golden light that made everything look like a memory even as it was happening. Willowbrook Park stretched out in manicured perfection, its emerald lawns dotted with ancient oak trees whose branches created cathedral-like canopies over the playground. The sound of children's laughter rang out like church bells, pure and unrestrained, bouncing off the slides and swings in a symphony of childhood joy. But on a weathered wooden bench at the edge of all this life, Sophia Lane sat in a bubble of silence that seemed impenetrable to the happiness around her. She watched her 7-year-old daughter Clara on the swings. The little girl pumped her legs mechanically, her small hands gripping the chain so tightly her knuckles had gone white. Up and down, back and forth, the motion was perfect, practiced, and utterly joyless. Clara's face remained blank, her lips pressed together in a line that had become heartbreakingly familiar over the past 18 months. 18 months. 547 days since Clara had spoken a single word. Sophia's phone buzzed insistently in her designer handbag, probably Marcus, her CFO, with another crisis that absolutely needed her immediate attention. As CEO of Lane Technologies, a company she'd built from nothing into a $3 billion enterprise, Sophia was used to solving problems. She'd negotiated with Fortune 500 executives, secured impossible deals, turned failing departments into profit centers. Her biography, Breaking Through a Woman's Guide to Corporate Success, had spent 12 weeks on the bestseller list, but she couldn't make her daughter speak. "Mommy, watch this!" A little girl on the monkey bars called out to her mother. The woman looked up from her phone, smiled, and called back encouragement. Such a simple exchange, yet it sent a knife through Sophia's chest. She remembered when Clara used to demand her attention like that, when every small achievement required immediate maternal witness and celebration. Before the accident, Sophia forced herself to look away from the happy mother-daughter pair and back to Clara. The girl had stopped swinging now and stood beside the swing set, watching the other children play with an expression that was neither sad nor happy, just empty. A group of kids about her age were organizing a game of tag nearby, and one of them, a boy with a gap-toothed grin, ran up to Clara. "You want to play?" he asked, bouncing on his toes with barely contained energy. Clara just stared at him. After a moment, she shook her head slowly and walked away, heading toward the sandbox where she could be alone. The boy shrugged and ran back to his friends, already forgetting the quiet girl who wouldn't play. Sophia's hands clenched in her lap. She'd watched this scene play out 100 times in different variations. Birthday parties where Clara sat in corners. Playdates that ended with other mothers making polite excuses about busy schedules. School meetings where teachers spoke in hushed, concerned tones about Clara's selective mutism and suggested perhaps a special education program might be more appropriate for her needs. The doctors all said the same thing. There was nothing physically wrong with Clara's voice. The trauma of losing her father had simply locked something inside her, and only time would tell if she would choose to speak again. Choose as if a 7-year-old was making a conscious decision to live in silence. Sophia had tried everything. The best child psychologist money could buy. Art therapy, play therapy, equine therapy. She'd taken a 3-month sabbatical from her company, something the board of directors had barely tolerated. She'd moved them from their high-rise penthouse to a house in the suburbs, thinking maybe Clara needed a yard, a neighborhood normalcy. She'd hired speech therapists who came with impressive credentials and left with apologetic shrugs. Nothing worked. "Beautiful day, isn't it?" The voice startled Sophia from her thoughts. A man had sat down on the opposite end of the bench, though she hadn't heard him approach. He was perhaps 35, with the kind of comfortable dishevelment that suggested he'd dressed by grabbing whatever was clean, rather than making conscious fashion choices. His khaki pants had a small stain near the knee juice box accident, most likely, and his polo shirt was the kind of faded blue that came from too many washes rather than designer distressing. "Yes," Sophia replied curtly. not in the mood for small talk with strangers. She'd perfected the art of polite dismissal in countless business meetings, and she employed it now, turning slightly away and pulling out her phone as a clear signal that the conversation was over. But the man didn't take the hint, or rather he seemed to take it and consciously choose to ignore it. "That your daughter, the one in the purple dress by the sandbox?" Sophia's maternal instincts sharpened. She looked at him more carefully now, assessing threat levels the way she'd learned to do since becoming a single mother. But his expression was mild, almost absent-minded, and his attention wasn't actually on Clara but on a little girl who was racing toward them at full speed, pigtails flying behind her like victory banners. "Daddy, Daddy, you have to come see. There's a butterfly that's literally the size of my whole hand, and it's orange and black. And I think it might be a monarch because we learned about those in science, but it could also be something else. And you need to come right now before it flies away." The words tumbled out in one long breath, and the girl she looked about Clara's age grabbed her father's hand and pulled with impressive determination for someone who couldn't weigh more than 50 pounds. The man laughed a warm, rumbling sound. "Slow down, Maya. Butterflies don't respond well to stampedes." "But, Daddy—" I know. Literally the size of your hand. Lead the way, butterfly detective." As he stood to follow his daughter, he glanced at Sophia with a smile that was somehow both apologetic and inviting. "She narrates the world," he said simply. "Sometimes I think she's afraid that if she stops talking, everything will disappear." Then he was gone, pulled into his daughter's orbit of enthusiasm, leaving Sophia alone with the echo of his words. She watched them inspect the butterfly, the father crouching down to his daughter's level, listening with genuine interest as she explained her theory about wing patterns and migration routes, with the confidence of someone who had watched a single nature documentary and now considered herself an expert. Clara had wandered closer to them, drawn, perhaps by Maya's animated gestures. She stood about 10 feet away, partially hidden behind a tree, watching. Sophia held her breath. Sometimes Clara showed interest in other children, though she never approached them. It was like watching a deer at the edge of a meadow, ready to bolt at the slightest wrong move. Maya noticed Clara first. Without any hesitation, she waved enthusiastically. "Hi, do you want to see the butterfly?" "It's right there on that flower. And I'm pretty sure it's drinking nectar, which is basically butterfly food. And did you know their tongues are called proboscises, which is probably the best word ever invented?" Clara didn't move. She didn't speak. But, and Sophia's heart jumped. She didn't run away either. The man, Daniel. Sophia had heard Maya call him, glanced at Clara, and then with a subtle understanding that surprised Sophia, he spoke to his daughter quietly. "Remember what we talked about, Maya? Sometimes people like to watch before they join." "Oh, right." Maya nodded sagely. Then, in what was clearly meant to be a whisper, but carried clearly across the playground. "Is she shy, Daddy? Maybe she just likes to think before she talks." Daniel replied, his voice carrying a gentle correction. "Unlike someone I know who talks while she thinks, and sometimes before she thinks, and occasionally instead of thinking." Maya giggled. "That's me." She turned back to Clara. "You can think all you want. The butterfly isn't going anywhere. It really likes this flower." And then Maya did something that made Sophia's chest tighten with an emotion she couldn't quite name. The little girl sat down cross-legged in the grass and started talking to the butterfly, creating a one-sided conversation that somehow included Clara without demanding anything from her. "So, butterfly, this is my dad, and that's—" She paused, looking at Clara with curious eyes. "That's my new friend who hasn't told me her name yet, but that's okay because sometimes names are private. I'm Maya, which means illusion in Sanskrit, but I don't know what Sanskrit is, except it's a language that nobody speaks anymore, which seems sad. Because what if there were really good jokes in Sanskrit that now nobody will ever laugh at?" Daniel caught Sophia's eye and offered a small shrug, as if to say, "This is my life." But there was no embarrassment in his expression, only a kind of amused pride. He moved a little closer to Sophia, though he remained standing, his attention split between the children and the playground at large. "She's something else," Sophia found herself saying. "That's one way to put it," Daniel replied with a laugh. Yesterday she asked me if fish get thirsty, and we spent an hour researching it. Turns out they don't, in case you were wondering. I wasn't, but now I'll never forget it. They fell into a comfortable silence, both watching as Maya continued her monologue. She'd moved on from introductions to explaining her theory that butterflies were actually tiny dragons who had given up fire breathing in exchange for beautiful wings, which was obviously a good trade because fire breathing would make it hard to land on flowers without burning them. Clara had moved a step closer. Just one small step, but Sophia noticed. She always noticed. Every tiny change in her daughter's behavior was catalogued, analyzed, hoped over. "The quiet one's yours?" Daniel asked, and there was something in his tone that wasn't pity or curiosity, but a kind of recognition. "Yes, Clara. Pretty name. Latin origin means clear bright." Sophia looked at him in surprise. "Most people don't know that. I have a thing for names, professional hazard." He didn't elaborate, and Sophia didn't ask. She'd learned that pushing for information often made people retreat in business and in life. Maya had started doing some kind of improvised butterfly dance, flapping her arms and spinning in circles. It should have scared the butterfly away, but miraculously it remained on its flower wings, slowly opening and closing in the afternoon sun. Clara took another step closer. "You know," Daniel said conversationally, as if they were old friends sharing a casual observation, "butterflies can't see their own wings. They have no idea how beautiful they are." Sophia felt the words land somewhere deep in her chest. She looked at Clara, her quiet, withdrawn daughter, who had no idea that her silence hadn't diminished her mother's love by even a fraction, who couldn't see how Sophia would give anything, everything, just to hear her voice again. "That's heartbreaking," Sophia said softly. "Or liberating," Daniel countered. "They just fly, no self-consciousness about it, no wondering if their wings are the right shade of orange or if other butterflies have better patterns. They just are." Maya had stopped dancing and was now lying on her stomach in the grass nose, inches from the butterfly, providing a whispered play-by-play of its every movement. "Now it's moving its antenna." "Wait, are they antennae or antennas when there's two, Daddy?" "Antennae," Daniel supplied. "Right, antennae, which is fun to say. Antennae. It's moving its antennae, and I think it's saying hello, or maybe it's checking the weather because butterflies probably don't have weather apps." Clara was now only 3 feet away from Maya. She stood perfectly still, like she was afraid any movement might break whatever spell was keeping this moment intact. Sophia realized she was holding her breath. "Does she go to Willowbrook Elementary?" Daniel asked quietly. "Yes, 2nd grade. Same as Maya, Mrs. Patterson. Mr. Rodriguez." "Ah, he's good. Maya had him for kindergarten. Very patient." Sophia wanted to say that patience hadn't been enough, that Clara's teacher was running out of ways to include a child who wouldn't speak, wouldn't participate, wouldn't engage. But she kept silent, a ironic echo of her daughter's choice. The butterfly suddenly lifted off the flower, floating upward. In that impossibly delicate way, butterflies move like they're swimming through honey. Maya jumped up, following its path with her eyes. "Bye, butterfly. Thanks for visiting. Come back tomorrow and bring friends." As the butterfly disappeared over the playground fence, Maya turned to Clara with a bright smile. "Did you see how its wings caught the light like stained glass windows, but alive? I bet if we came here every day at the same time, we'd see it again. Butterflies are creatures of habit. I learned that from a book. Do you like books?" Clara looked at Maya for a long moment. Then slowly, deliberately, she nodded. It was such a small gesture, but Sophia felt tears prick her eyes. Clara hadn't responded to a direct question from another child in months. The therapist called it selective mutism, an anxiety disorder that locked away a child's voice in certain social situations. But Sophia just called it heartbreak, the kind that was too big for a 7-year-old body to contain. "I love books," Maya exclaimed, apparently delighted by this nonverbal communication. "My favorite right now is about a girl who can talk to animals, but only to the ones nobody likes, like pigeons and rats and mosquitoes, which seems unfair, but also interesting because those animals probably have the best stories since nobody ever listens to them." She paused, tilting her head at Clara with curious eyes that held no judgment, only interest. "Do you want to play on the swings?" "We don't have to talk." Sometimes swinging is better without words anyway, because the wind makes its own sounds. Clara looked back at Sophia, seeking permission or reassurance, or maybe just confirming that her mother was still there, still watching, still her anchor in a world that had become unpredictable and scary. Sophia smiled and nodded, trying to convey with her expression that it was okay that she could try, that nothing bad would happen. Clara turned back to Maya and nodded again. Great. Maya grabbed Clara's hand without hesitation, and Sophia watched her daughter stiffen for a moment before slowly relaxing. I know the best swings. Not the baby ones with the backs, those are for babies, obviously, but not the ones by the basketball court either, because the big kids hog those. The perfect ones are by the oak tree because you can pretend the branches are clouds and you're flying through the sky. As Maya led Clara away, chattering about cloud types and flying techniques, Daniel moved to sit on the bench, maintaining a respectful distance from Sophia. She doesn't usually, Sophia started, then stopped, unsure how to explain that her daughter hadn't voluntarily interacted with another child in over a year. Maya has that effect, Daniel said simply. She doesn't notice the walls people put up, so she walks right through them. They watched as the girls reached the swings. Maya was demonstrating her cloud flying technique, which seemed to involve leaning back as far as possible and letting her hair trail in the air behind her. Clara watched intently, and then, miraculously, she climbed onto the swing beside Maya. Can I ask? Sophia hesitated. Is it just you and Maya? Daniel's expression shifted slightly, a shadow passing over his features before he smiled. 3 years now. Her mom decided motherhood wasn't for her, moved to Portland to find herself, sends a card on Maya's birthday sometimes. I'm sorry. Don't be. Maya and I do all right. Better than all right, actually, though I could do with fewer butterfly facts at 6 in the morning. Sophia laughed, surprising herself. When was the last time she'd laughed at a playground? When was the last time she'd had an actual conversation with another parent that wasn't about Clara's condition or filled with awkward pauses and pitying looks? What about you? Daniel asked. If you don't mind me asking. Sophia did mind usually. The story of David's death was not playground conversation, but something about Daniel's easy manner, the way he'd shared his own loss without drama or self-pity, made her want to reciprocate. Car accident 18 months ago. Clara was in the car. She didn't need to say more. Daniel nodded, understanding, filling his eyes, without the pity she'd grown so tired of seeing. That's a heavy load for someone so small, he said quietly. She hasn't spoken since. The words hung in the air between them. Sophia waited for the usual responses, the suggestions of therapists, the stories of other children who'd eventually talked again, the reassurances that everything would be fine. But Daniel just watched the girls swinging Maya's voice carrying across the playground as she narrated their flight through imaginary clouds. Look, Maya was saying, if you lean back right, when you're at the highest point, you can see the whole sky upside down, and it looks like an ocean. Try it. Clara leaned back tentatively, her long hair streaming behind her. For a moment, just a moment, Sophia saw something flicker across her daughter's face. Not quite a smile, but a loosening of the tight control she kept on her expressions. Maya's never met a silence she couldn't fill, Daniel said with fond exasperation. Sometimes I worry she talks too much, that other kids will find her annoying. She's wonderful, Sophia said firmly. She's treating Clara like she's normal. Isn't she? The question was gentle, but it landed with unexpected force. Sophia had spent so many months thinking of Clara as broken, as traumatized, as selective mute Clara, rather than just Clara. When had her daughter become a diagnosis rather than a person? I didn't mean, I know, Daniel said. It's easy to forget sometimes that they're still just kids, even when they're carrying things that would flatten most adults. On the swings, Maya was teaching Clara a counting game, something about pumping your legs in rhythm with prime numbers, which seemed unnecessarily complicated, but Clara was watching Maya's legs intently, trying to match her rhythm. She's in the purple dress, the quiet one watching everything? Daniel asked suddenly. Yes, that's Clara, he nodded thoughtfully. Maya mentioned her a few weeks ago. Said there was a girl in another class who ate lunch alone but always had the prettiest lunchbox, the one with stars on it. Sophia's throat tightened. That's hers. Her father bought it for her right before. She couldn't finish the sentence, but Daniel didn't need her to. Maya asked if she could sit with her once. She said Clara looked at her for a long time and then moved over to make room. They didn't talk, Maya said, but they sat together. She was very proud of herself for being quiet for a whole 7 minutes, which is apparently a personal record. Clara never mentioned, well, she wouldn't, but she also didn't show any signs that anything different had happened that day. Maybe nothing did happen from Clara's perspective. Maybe it was just lunch. But Sophia knew better. Clara had been eating alone since she'd returned to school after the accident. The fact that she'd let another child sit with her even in silence was huge. The girls had stopped swinging and were now engaged in some sort of game that involved Maya talking and gesturing while Clara nodded or shook her head. It looked like 20 questions if one player provided all the commentary for both sides. Is it bigger than a bread box? You're nodding, so yes. Is it alive? No, but was it ever alive? That's a tricky question. Good head tilt. I'll take that as a maybe. She's extraordinary, Sophia said, watching Maya's animated performance. She's exhausting, Daniel corrected with a laugh. But yes, also extraordinary. Yesterday she convinced me that we needed to leave cookies out for the neighborhood cats because they might be secret agents and we want to stay on their good side. Sound logic. That's what I thought, though my neighbors probably think I'm insane leaving cookies on the fence posts. They fell into comfortable silence, both watching their daughters. The afternoon sun was starting to slant golden through the trees, casting long shadows across the playground. Other families were beginning to pack up, heading home for dinner and homework and bedtime routines. We should probably go soon, Sophia said reluctantly. Clara usually started getting anxious as the playground emptied, as if the departing children were taking all the safety with them. Us too. Maya has a very strict schedule of chaos that includes dinner, bath, 3 stories, 2 songs, and 1 made-up adventure before bed. Sounds exhausting. Every single night, but she sleeps like the dead after, so it's worth it. Daniel stood and called out, Maya, 5-minute warning. But Daddy, we just figured out that Clara's thinking of a unicorn, and we haven't guessed what color it is yet. Sophia's heart stopped. Clara was thinking of a unicorn. Clara was playing a guessing game. Clara was participating. Daniel caught her expression and smiled. Kids are resilient in ways we forget to be. Maya ran over Clara, trailing behind more slowly. Daddy, can Clara come to our house sometime? I want to show her my rock collection and my books and Mr. Whiskers. That's my hamster, not a person. And we could have sandwiches, but not peanut butter if she's allergic. Are you allergic? This last question directed at Clara, who shook her head. Great, so can she come over? Daniel looked at Sophia, leaving the decision to her. We'll see, Sophia said, which every parent knew was code for, I need time to think about this. But Maya apparently didn't know that code. When's we'll see tomorrow? The day after next week. I'm free all those times except Tuesday after school, because that's when I have piano lessons and I'm learning Für Elise, but it doesn't sound like it yet. It sounds like someone stepping on a cat's tail. But Ms. Jennifer says that's normal and part of the process. Maya, breathe, Daniel reminded her gently. Right, breathing. She took an exaggerated deep breath. But really, when Sophia found herself looking at Clara, who was standing slightly behind Maya, but watching everything with an intensity that reminded Sophia of how she used to be before the accident, curious, engaged, present. How about this weekend? Sophia heard herself saying. Saturday afternoon. Saturday afternoon is perfect. Maya bounced on her toes. We can have a tea party, but with juice boxes because I'm not allowed to use the real teapot anymore after the incident we don't talk about. The incident was last week, Daniel said dryly. And we talk about it frequently, especially when you're reaching for breakable things. As they gathered their things and said goodbye, Maya gave Clara an enthusiastic wave. Bye, Clara. Saturday will be the best. I'll plan everything. Well, not everything, because Daddy says I need to leave room for spontaneous fun, which seems redundant because fun is already spontaneous, right? Clara raised her hand in a small wave back. It was the first time she'd voluntarily said goodbye to another child since the accident. As they walked to their cars, Sophia found herself fighting tears. Such small victories, sitting with someone at lunch, playing a guessing game, waving goodbye, but for Clara, for them, these were mountains climbed. "Thank you," she said quietly to Daniel as they reached the parking lot. "For what?" "For letting Maya be Maya. For not treating Clara like she's broken." Daniel paused by a well-worn SUV with a "My child is an honor student" sticker that had been modified with marker to read "My child is probably planning world domination." "Can I tell you something?" he said, fishing his keys from his pocket. "The first 6 months after Maya's mom left, she didn't sleep. Not wouldn't, couldn't. She'd lie in bed making up stories about where her mom was, each one more elaborate than the last. Secret spy missions, alien abductions, a quest to find a magical cure for sadness. I took her to doctors, therapists, tried everything. Nothing worked." He opened the car door for Maya, who was still chattering about Saturday plans. "What finally helped?" Sophia asked. "Time. And a very patient librarian named Mrs. Chen who let Maya talk her ear off every single day after school for 3 months. She never tried to fix her or hurry her along. She just let her be Maya, but louder and longer than usual." He smiled at Sophia's expression. "I'm not saying it's the same thing, but sometimes kids need to process things in their own way in their own time, and sometimes they need to find that one person who makes them feel safe enough to try again." As Sophia drove home, Clara in the back seat looking out the window, she thought about Daniel's words, about butterflies who couldn't see their own wings, about a little girl who talked enough for two, about the possibility that healing didn't always come from therapy appointments and medical interventions, but sometimes from juice boxes and imaginary clouds and someone patient enough to wait for you to be ready. "Mama," she said softly, not really expecting a response but needing to fill the silence that had become their constant companion. "Maya seems nice. Would you like to go to her house on Saturday?" In the rearview mirror, she saw Clara nod a small but decisive movement. "Good. That's really good, sweetheart." They drove the rest of the way home in their familiar silence, but somehow it felt different, less heavy, less permanent. Like maybe it was just a pause in the conversation rather than an ending. That night, as Sophia tucked Clara into bed, she noticed something different about her daughter's expression. Not happiness exactly, but a kind of alertness, like she was listening for something just beyond hearing. It was the same look she used to get on Christmas Eve, full of anticipation for possibilities. "Sweet dreams, my love," Sophia whispered, kissing Clara's forehead. Clara's lips moved slightly, not quite forming words, but shaping them, practicing maybe. Sophia pretended not to notice, afraid that drawing attention to it might scare away whatever was trying to emerge. As she turned off the light and started to leave, she heard the softest sound, not a word, not even a vocalization really, just a small sigh that somehow held more hope than all the therapy sessions combined. Saturday couldn't come fast enough. The week crawled by with agonizing slowness. Sophia found herself distracted at work, her mind drifting during board meetings to replay those moments at the playground. Her assistant Patricia, a woman who'd been with her since the startup days, noticed immediately. "You seem different," Patricia said Thursday morning, bringing in Sophia's coffee. "Less coiled. Coiled like a spring wound too tight, ready to either bounce or snap." Patricia had never been one to mince words, which was why Sophia valued her. "This week you seem more like a normal person with stress rather than a stress ball shaped like a person." "Clara made a friend," Sophia said simply. Patricia's face lit up. She'd been there through everything David's death. Clara's silence, the endless appointments and interventions. She'd fielded calls from reporters who wanted to do stories about the tragic tech CEO, had rescheduled countless meetings. When Clara needed Sophia, had never once complained about the chaos that had overtaken their once orderly corporate life. "That's wonderful. Really wonderful. We're going to her house on Saturday for a play date." The word felt foreign on Sophia's tongue. When was the last time Clara had been on a play date? "Do you need me to?" "No, I'm going to stay. The father will be there too. He seems to understand about Clara." Patricia raised an eyebrow but said nothing. Sophia knew that look. It was Patricia's "I have thoughts, but I'm choosing not to share them" expression. "What?" "Nothing. Just, it's good to see you letting someone in, both of you." Before Sophia could respond, her phone buzzed with an email marked urgent, and the moment passed. But Patricia's words lingered. Friday night, Clara actually ate dinner, most of it anyway. She'd been picking at her food for months, eating just enough to keep the doctors from worrying too much. But tonight she finished her chicken, most of her vegetables, and even asked for seconds on the rice. Well asked in her way, pointing at the rice and then at her plate. After dinner, Sophia found Clara in her room laying out clothes on her bed. 3 different outfits were arranged with careful precision: her favorite purple dress, the one she'd worn to the playground, a pair of jeans with a butterfly shirt. When had she gotten that, and a yellow sundress that had been a gift from David's mother? "Trying to decide what to wear tomorrow?" Sophia asked from the doorway. Clara nodded, her brow furrowed in concentration. She pointed at each outfit in turn, then looked at Sophia questioningly. "I think the butterfly shirt, since Maya likes butterflies." Clara considered this, then nodded decisively and began putting the other clothes away. Such a normal moment, a girl choosing clothes for a playdate, but Sophia had to turn away to hide the tears that threatened to fall. That night, Sophia lay awake thinking about the strange turn their lives had taken. A chance encounter at a playground, a father and daughter who didn't treat them like they were damaged, the possibility of something she'd almost stopped believing in: normalcy, or at least a version of it. Saturday arrived gray and drizzly, the kind of weather that usually kept them inside. Sophia worried Clara might use it as an excuse to cancel, but she was up and dressed in her butterfly shirt by 8 a.m., a full 3 hours before they needed to leave. "Sssss, someone's excited," Sophia said, finding Clara in the living room, her shoes already on, sitting by the window. Clara turned to look at her, and for a moment, just a fleeting second, Sophia could have sworn she saw the ghost of a smile. The drive to Maya and Daniel's house took them to a part of town Sophia rarely visited, older neighborhoods with mature trees and houses that had personality, rather than perfect landscaping. Daniel's house was a 2-story craftsman with a wraparound porch and a yard that looked well-loved rather than well-maintained. There was a tire swing hanging from a massive maple tree and what appeared to be a fairy garden taking over one corner of the front yard. Maya must have been watching for them because the front door burst open before they'd even reached the porch. "You're here. I've been waiting for literally hours." Well, not literally, because that would mean more than 1 hour, and it's only been 45 minutes, but it felt like hours. She was wearing a tutu over jeans and a t-shirt that proclaimed, "Future Supreme Court Justice" or "Dragon Trainer Haven't Decided." Daniel appeared behind her, looking apologetic. "She's been up since 5:30 planning your visit. I'm pretty sure she's rearranged her room 3 times. 4 times, Maya corrected, because I couldn't decide if the books should be organized by color or by how much I like them or alphabetically, so I did all 3 and then went back to how much I like them because that makes the most sense for showing Clara." She grabbed Clara's hand. "Come on, I have so much to show you." Clara looked back at Sophia, a flicker of uncertainty in her eyes. "Go ahead, sweetheart. I'll be right here." Daniel stepped aside to let the girls pass Maya, already launching into a detailed tour commentary. "So this is the living room where we watch movies and build forts, and that's the kitchen where Daddy burns toast every morning." "I don't burn it, I make it extra crispy," Daniel called after them. "And these are the stairs that I'm not allowed to slide down on my sleeping bag anymore after the incident we definitely don't talk about. We talk about that one constantly, too." Their voices faded as they headed upstairs, leaving Sophia and Daniel standing somewhat awkwardly in the entrance. "Coffee," Daniel offered. "Fair warning, I make it strong enough to wake the dead." "Sounds perfect." The kitchen was exactly what Sophia would have expected: cheerfully chaotic, with Maya's artwork covering the refrigerator dishes and the sink, and a half-finished science project involving what appeared to be a volcano made of paper mache taking up half the table. "Sorry about the mess," Daniel said, clearing a space for them to sit. "I meant to clean, but then Maya needed help practicing her presentation about butterflies for show and tell, and somehow that turned into making butterfly costumes for her stuffed animals." "It's perfect," Sophia said, and meant it. Her own house had become so sterile, so quiet, so carefully maintained, as if any disorder might make Clara's condition worse. This house felt lived in, loved in. Daniel poured coffee into 2 mismatched mugs, one advertising a local library's reading program, the other emblazoned with "World's Okayest Dad." "Maya picked that one out for me last Father's Day, Hope. he explained, noticing Sophia's smile. She said best was too much pressure. From upstairs, they could hear Maya's continuous narration and occasional thumps that suggested furniture was being rearranged. Should we check on them? Sophia asked, maternal anxiety creeping in. Give them a few minutes, Daniel suggested. Maya's room is thoroughly child-proofed after she tried to build a zip line from her window to the tree, with dental floss. Dental floss. She'd run out of string. Very innovative, terrible execution. They sat in comfortable silence for a moment, listening to the rain tap against the windows and Maya's muffled voice from above. Can I ask you something? Daniel said suddenly. What was Clara like before? It was a question no one had asked in months. Everyone wanted to know about Clara's condition, her progress, her prognosis. No one asked about who she'd been. She was luminous. Sophia said the word coming unbidden. Not loud, like no offense like Maya, but she had this way of observing everything and then making these observations that would floor you. Once when she was 5, she told me that rain sounded different on different things and that her favorite was rain on leaves because it sounded like applause. Daniel smiled. That's beautiful. She loved words. David would read to her every night these complex books that should have been beyond her age, but she absorbed them all. She'd use these big words in perfect context, this tiny little person talking about things being deciduous or ephemeral. David used to joke that she'd either become a poet or a lawyer. Sophia realized she was talking about David without the usual knife of pain in her chest. When had that started to happen? She sounds remarkable, Daniel said softly. She is. Even now, even silent. I just wish everyone else could see it. Maya does. Before Sophia could respond, there was a crash from upstairs followed by Maya's voice. It's okay. Nothing broke. Well, nothing important? Well, nothing that can't be fixed with tape. Daniel sighed and stood. I should probably investigate. Come on, let me show you the scene of the crime. Maya's room was a riot of color and creativity. Every surface was covered with something. Books, art supplies, rocks, shells. What appeared to be a collection of bottle caps arranged in a complex pattern. And in the middle of it all, Maya and Clara sat on the floor surrounded by every stuffed animal Maya owned, apparently in the middle of introductions. And this is Mr. Fluffington III. The first two met unfortunate ends involving the washing machine, and he's the president of Stuffedland. But it's a democracy, so really he just organizes the meetings. Clara was holding a well-loved teddy bear, carefully adjusting its bow tie while Maya narrated. The crash, it turned out, had been a tower of books that had toppled when Maya tried to reach something on a high shelf. No harm done, Maya announced cheerfully. Books are tough. Unlike eggs. Did you know eggs can survive a fall from pretty high up if you cushion them right? We did an experiment at school, but mine broke anyway because I forgot that newspaper isn't actually very cushioning. Clara tilted her head, a question in her expression that Maya somehow interpreted perfectly. Oh, you want to know what I was reaching for? My special rock, the one I found at the beach that looks like a heart, but also like a potato depending on how you hold it. She produced a smooth gray stone from her pocket and handed it to Clara, who examined it carefully, turning it over in her hands. Sea heart from this way, potato from that way. Daddy says that's called perspective, and that everything has more than one way of looking at it. Daniel cleared his throat. Speaking of perspective, how about we move this party downstairs? I made cookies this morning. You bought cookies this morning, Maya corrected. From the store, but you did put them on a plate, so that counts as making them presentable. As they trooped downstairs, Sophia noticed Clara was still holding the bear, and Maya didn't ask for it back. Such a small gesture, but it spoke volumes about the kind of child Daniel was raising. The afternoon passed in a blur of activities orchestrated by Maya with the energy of a tiny circus ringmaster. They played board games where Maya changed the rules to make sure everyone won at least once. They had a tea party with juice boxes, where Maya provided voices for all the stuffed animals in attendance. They built a fort out of couch cushions that Maya declared was structurally soundish. Through it all, Clara participated in her silent way, following Maya's lead, nodding or shaking her head when asked questions. Even laughing, actually laughing, when Maya attempted to juggle crackers and dropped them all on her own head. The sound of Clara's laughter, rusty from disuse but unmistakably joyful, made both adults freeze. Sophia's hand flew to her mouth, tears springing to her eyes. Daniel quietly handed her a tissue, his own eyes suspiciously bright. "Do it again," Maya demanded, apparently unaware of the magnitude of the moment. "But this time with grapes, they're bouncier." As the afternoon wore on, Sophia found herself relaxing in a way she hadn't in 18 months. She and Daniel fell into easy conversation, while keeping an eye on the girls talking about everything and nothing, books they'd read, movies they wanted to see, the challenges of single parenthood, the way grief could ambush you in the cereal aisle. "The first time Maya's mom missed her birthday," Daniel said quietly, while the girls were engrossed in a puzzle. "I found Maya in her closet at 3 in the morning, writing a letter explaining all the reasons her mom might have forgotten. There were 27 reasons. She was 6. What did you do?" "I sat in that closet with her until dawn, and we came up with 28 reasons why she was loved one to beat the 27. Then we had birthday cake for breakfast." "That's beautiful." "It was a disaster. Turns out cake for breakfast leads to a sugar crash right around circle time at school. But Maya remembers it as one of her best days ever, so I count it as a win." They were interrupted by Maya announcing it was time for the best part of the day, showing Clara her secret reading nook. "It's not really secret," Maya stage whispered, "because everyone knows about it, but I call it secret because that makes it sound more special." The reading nook turned out to be a corner of the covered back porch that had been transformed with strings of lights, cushions, and a canopy made from old curtains. It was magical in the way that only a child's creative space could be. "This is where I come when I need to think really hard, or when I'm sad, or when I just want to read without anyone asking me what I'm reading or why I'm making faces at the book," Maya explained. "You can borrow it sometime if you want, not like take it home because it's attached to the house, but you can come use it." Clara looked around the space with wide eyes, taking in every detail. Then she did something that made Sophia's heart skip. She pointed at one of the books on the makeshift shelf and looked at Maya questioningly. "Oh, that's my favorite. It's about a girl who can't talk, but she can make flowers grow with her thoughts. And she saves the whole village with a garden, but nobody knows it was her until the end." "Do you want me to read it to you?" Clara nodded emphatically. As Maya began to read using different voices for each character and providing commentary on the plot, Clara settled into the cushions beside her, more relaxed than Sophia had seen her in months. "They're good for each other," Daniel said softly, standing beside Sophia as they watched through the window. "Maya's been so patient with her, so understanding." "It's not patience," Daniel said thoughtfully. "I don't think Maya even notices that Clara doesn't talk. She just sees a friend who listens really well." As the afternoon stretched toward evening and the rain continued its gentle patter, Sophia found herself wishing they could stay in this bubble forever, this safe space where her daughter could just be a child, where silence wasn't a symptom but simply another form of communication, where healing looked like reading books in a makeshift fort while rain played percussion on the roof. But eventually, reality intruded in the form of bedtime approaching. When Sophia announced they needed to leave soon, both girls' faces fell. "But we haven't even started the second book in the series," Maya protested. "And I was going to show Clara my glow-in-the-dark star map and teach her the secret handshake I invented." "There will be other days," Daniel said gently. "Promise." Maya looked between the adults with serious eyes. Sophia found herself meeting Daniel's gaze over the girls' heads. "Promise," she said, and meant it. As they gathered their things to leave, Maya suddenly ran to her room and came back with the teddy bear Clara had been holding earlier. "This is Mr. Fluffington's cousin, Professor Cuddles," she announced, pressing the bear into Clara's hands. "He's been looking for a new home because he says my room is too noisy for proper thinking, and I think maybe he'd like your house better. Plus, he's very good at keeping secrets and being quiet, so you two should get along great." Clara clutched the bear to her chest, her eyes wide with surprise and something that looked like wonder. "Take good care of him," Maya said solemnly. "He likes to sleep on the right side of the bed, and he's afraid of vacuum cleaners, but only the loud ones." As they were leaving, Clara did something that stunned everyone. She reached out and hugged Maya. It was quick, barely more than a squeeze, but it was voluntary physical affection, something the therapist had said might take years to return. Maya, bless her, didn't make a big deal of it. She just hugged back and said, "See you soon, Clara. Next time we'll make up our own language that only we understand." In the car on the way home, Clara sat in the back holding Professor Cuddles, and for the first time in 18 months, the silence didn't feel heavy. It felt like it was full of possibility, like the quiet before a symphony begins. "That was fun, wasn't it?" Sophia said, glancing in the rearview mirror. Clara nodded, then did something she hadn't done since the accident. She reached forward and touched Sophia's shoulder, just a brief pat, but it was contact connection communication. "I love you too, sweetheart," Sophia whispered, understanding the message perfectly. That night, as Sophia checked on Clara before going to bed herself, she found her daughter already asleep. Professor Cuddles tucked carefully under one arm. But what made her pause in the doorway was what she heard Clara was humming. So softly, it was barely audible, just a whisper of melody, but it was the first sound she'd made beyond crying in 18 months. It wasn't words, not yet, but it was a beginning. The following Monday morning arrived with unseasonable warmth, the kind of spring day that made everything feel possible. Sophia stood at Clara's bedroom door, watching her daughter carefully pack her school bag, Professor Cuddles positioned on the bed where he could observe the proceedings. Clara had slept with the bear every night since Saturday, and twice Sophia had heard that soft humming in the darkness. "Ready for school?" Sophia asked gently. Clara nodded, but there was something different in her expression, a quality of anticipation rather than the usual resignation. She picked up Professor Cuddles, hesitated, then carefully placed him in her backpack where his head peeked out from the top. At school drop-off, Sophia spotted Maya before Clara did. The little girl was standing by the entrance, clearly waiting, bouncing on her toes with barely contained energy. The moment she saw them, she waved enthusiastically. "Clara, I saved you a spot at lunch." Well, I told everyone very seriously that the spot was taken, and when Jeremy tried to sit there, I explained about friendship real estate and how you can't just take someone's emotional property. Clara's face transformed with something that wasn't quite a smile, but was definitely in the smile family. She squeezed Sophia's hand once their signal for "I'm okay," and walked toward Maya with more confidence than she'd shown in months. "Is that Professor Cuddles? He looks very scholarly today. Come on, I have to show you something before the bell rings." As the girls disappeared into the school, Sophia remained frozen in place. Watching through the glass doors as Maya led Clara down the hallway, their heads bent together over something Maya was pulling from her pocket. For the first time since the accident, Sophia didn't feel like she was sending her broken child into battle. She felt like she was watching her daughter go to school with a friend. Her phone buzzed with a text from Daniel. Maya couldn't sleep last night, planning all the things she wants to show Clara. "Thank you for Saturday. It meant a lot to her, to both of us." Sophia found herself smiling as she typed back, "Clara hummed last night. First vocal sounds in 18 months. Thank you." The response came quickly. "That's incredible. Maya will be thrilled. Fair warning, she's planning to teach Clara a secret whistling language she invented, apologizing in advance for any noise complaints." That afternoon, when Sophia picked Clara up, Mr. Rodriguez pulled her aside. "I don't know what happened this weekend," he said, his usually concerned expression replaced with cautious optimism. "But Clara participated today. Non-verbally, of course, but she raised her hand during math, came to the board to solve a problem, and even partnered with Maya for reading time." "She participated," Sophia repeated, hardly daring to believe it. "More than that. When Maya was reading aloud and got stuck on a word, Clara pointed to it in her own book, and then acted it out until Maya understood. It was remarkable. Whatever you're doing, keep doing it." What she was doing, Sophia reflected as she watched Clara and Maya say goodbye with their elaborate hand signals, was nothing more than letting her daughter be a child with another child who didn't see her silence as something to be fixed. The days fell into a new rhythm. Tuesday. Maya appeared at their lunch table with 2 juice boxes, one for each of us, because sharing straws is how you get colds, according to my dad, but I think he just doesn't want my germs. Wednesday. Clara voluntarily joined Maya's reading group, sitting close enough that their shoulders touched. Thursday. Maya announced she was teaching Clara emotional origami, which seemed to involve folding paper while talking about feelings, though Clara's part consisted mainly of nodding and occasionally holding up colored paper to match moods. It was Friday when everything shifted again. Sophia was in a board meeting when her phone lit up with a call from the school. Her heart immediately went into overdrive. Calls from school never meant anything good. She excused herself and answered with trembling fingers. "Ms. Lane, this is Principal Morrison. I need you to come to the school. Claire is fine," she added quickly, "but there's been an incident." The drive to school was a blur of worst-case scenarios. Had Clara been hurt? Had she had a breakdown? Had the progress of the week been too much? She found Clara in the principal's office, sitting in one of the large chairs with Professor Cuddles clutched to her chest. Her face was streaked with tears, but she seemed physically unharmed. Maya sat in the chair beside her uncharacteristically still, holding Clara's free hand. "What happened?" Sophia asked, dropping to her knees in front of Clara, checking her over for injuries. Principal Morrison, a kind woman who'd been nothing but patient with Clara's situation, looked troubled. "There was an incident at recess. Some older boys were teasing Maya about talking too much. They took her butterfly notebook and started throwing it around, keeping it away from her." Sophia's stomach clenched. She could imagine how that would have upset both girls. "Clara tried to help," the principal continued, and Sophia's head snapped up in surprise. "According to witnesses, she stood between Maya and the boys trying to get the notebook back. When one of the boys pushed past her and made Maya cry Clara," the principal paused, seeming to search for the right words. "She screamed." "She screamed," Sophia repeated faintly. "Not words, just a sound. But it was loud enough to stop everyone in the playground. The boys were so shocked they dropped the notebook and ran. Several teachers heard it from inside the building." Sophia looked at Clara, who had buried her face against Professor Cuddles. Maya, however, was looking at Clara with something approaching awe. "It was the bravest thing ever," Maya whispered. "She used her voice to protect me. She's like a superhero who was saving her power for when it really mattered." Clara lifted her head slightly, one eye visible, looking at Maya with an expression that seemed to ask if that was really true. "Totally true," Maya confirmed. "Those boys were being mean and you stopped them. You're my hero. Can I hug you?" Clara nodded, and Maya wrapped her arms around her. Professor Cuddles squished between them. "The boys have been dealt with," Principal Morrison assured Sophia. "But I wanted you to know what happened. This is actually a very positive sign, Ms. Lane. Using her voice to protect someone she cares about, that's a breakthrough." Daniel arrived then, having gotten a similar call about Maya. His eyes immediately went to his daughter, then to Clara, taking in the scene with quick understanding. "You okay, butterfly girl?" he asked Maya gently. "I'm better than okay. Clara saved me. She used her superhero voice and scared away the bullies. It was amazing. Like the whole playground stopped and everyone was looking, and the boys looked like they might pee their pants. Sorry, Principal Morrison. But they did. And then they ran away and dropped my notebook, and Clara picked it up and gave it back to me, and I cried. But happy tears, not sad tears." Daniel's eyes met Sophia's over their daughters' heads, both parents recognizing the significance of what had happened. "I think," Daniel said slowly, "this calls for a celebration. Ice cream for dinner, perhaps." "Ice cream isn't dinner," Maya said automatically, then brightened. "But it could be dessert before dinner, which is basically reverse eating, and that sounds fun." They ended up at a small ice cream parlor downtown. The four of them squeezed into a booth, Maya regaling them with increasingly dramatic retellings of Clara's heroics, while Clara slowly ate her strawberry ice cream, occasionally nodding when Maya looked to her for confirmation. "And then it was like the whole world stopped," Maya was saying, gesturing with her spoon and flinging drops of chocolate ice cream. "Like in movies when something really important happens and everything goes slow motion, except it wasn't slow, it was just quiet after Clara's voice." Clara ducked her head, but Sophia caught the tiny pleased smile that flickered across her face. "You know what I think," Daniel said, wiping chocolate off Maya's nose. "I think Clara's voice was just waiting for the right moment to come back, and protecting a friend. That's about the best reason I can think of." Clara looked up at him, then at Maya, then at her mother. Her mouth opened slightly, as if she wanted to say something, but no words came. Instead, she reached over and squeezed Maya's hand. "I know," Maya said, as if Clara had spoken. "You'd do it again. That's what friends do." As they were leaving the ice cream parlor, Maya suddenly stopped. Oh, I almost forgot tomorrow is Saturday, which means play date, right. The adults exchanged glances. They hadn't actually made plans, but it seemed to be assumed. If that works for you, Daniel said to Sophia. Please, 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 Maya added, bouncing again. I promise I'll clean my room. Well, I'll move things around so it looks cleaner. Well, I'll at least make a path from the door to the bed. How can we refuse such a generous offer? Sophia laughed. That night, as Sophia was preparing Clara's bath, she heard it again, the humming. Louder this time, more confident. It almost sounded like a tune she recognized something from one of the Disney movies Clara used to love. That's pretty, sweetheart, she said casually, not wanting to make too big a deal of it. Clara stopped immediately, but when Sophia glanced at her, she didn't look scared or withdrawn. She looked thoughtful, like she was considering something important. The next morning arrived bright and clear, and Clara was up and dressed before Sophia even had coffee brewing. She'd chosen her clothes herself, jeans and a t-shirt with a rainbow on it that she hadn't worn since before the accident. Professor Cuddles was already positioned by the door, ready for the journey. Someone's eager, Sophia observed, and Clara actually smiled, a real unmistakable smile. When they arrived at Daniel and Maya's house, Maya was literally standing on the porch, bouncing her father's hands on her shoulders in what appeared to be an attempt to keep her earthbound. Finally, I've been waiting for 20 whole minutes, which is like 100 minutes in kid time. Come on, I have something to show you. She grabbed Clara's hand and started pulling her toward the backyard, calling over her shoulder, Dad made lemonade, but I helped by not helping, because apparently that's sometimes the best way to help. In the backyard, Maya had set up what could only be described as an obstacle course made entirely of household items. There were pillows to jump over, hula hoops to step through, and a tunnel made from cardboard boxes. It's an adventure course, Maya announced proudly. Each obstacle represents overcoming something, like the pillows are jumping over sadness, and the tunnel is crawling through hard times, and the hula hoops are, well, they're just fun. Not everything has to be a metaphor, right? For the next hour, the girls navigated the course repeatedly, with Maya adding new challenges, and Clara gamely following along, even adding a few modifications of her own, pointing to suggest they go backwards through the tunnel, demonstrating that they should hop on one foot between the hoops. Sophia and Daniel watched from the deck cups of coffee, warming their hands. She's creative, Sophia said, watching Maya turn the entire course into a story about rescuing stuffed animals from a dragon. That's one word for it, Daniel agreed. Yesterday, she convinced me that spaghetti would taste better if we ate it with chopsticks. Took us an hour to finish dinner, but she wasn't wrong, it was more fun. They fell into comfortable silence, broken only by Maya's narration and the occasional giggle from Clara. Actual giggles, each one a small miracle. Can I ask you something personal? Daniel said suddenly. Sophia tensed slightly but nodded. How do you do it? Run a major company while dealing with everything else. I can barely manage my job at the music therapy center, and that's with flexible hours. You're a music therapist, Sophia asked, surprised. You mentioned it before, but I didn't realize. Part-time. I also teach piano lessons and do some composing on the side. Nothing glamorous, but it pays the bills and lets me be there for Maya. That's why you understood, Sophia said, pieces clicking into place. About Clara, about selective mutism. I've worked with a few kids with similar issues. Never my own kid, though. That's got to be a whole different level of hard. Some days I feel like I'm drowning, Sophia admitted, surprising herself with the honesty. Like, no matter what I do, it's not enough. The company needs me, Clara needs me, and there's only one of me. And what do you need? The question caught her off guard. When was the last time someone had asked her that? When was the last time she'd asked herself, I don't know, she said quietly. I haven't thought about what I need in a very long time. Their conversation was interrupted by Maya announcing it was time for Phase 2 of the playdate, which apparently involved a talent show where the stuffed animals would perform. Professor Cuddles can go first since he's the guest, Maya declared, and then proceeded to provide his voice as he performed what she called interpretive dance, but looked more like Maya waving the bear around randomly. Then something remarkable happened. When it was Clara's turn to make one of the stuffed animals perform, she picked up a small rabbit, and instead of waiting for Maya to provide the voice, she made the rabbit bow. Then so quietly that Sophia almost missed it. Clara made a sound boo like a tiny trumpet fanfare. Maya gasped dramatically. Did the rabbit just trumpet? That's the best talent ever. Clara's face flushed, but she made the sound again slightly louder. Boo! Encore! Encore! Maya cheered, and Clara, caught up in the moment, made the rabbit bow again with another tiny trumpet sound. Sophia found herself gripping Daniel's arm, tears streaming down her face. She's making sounds, on purpose. She's playing. Daniel covered her hand with his. She's finding her way back. The talent show continued with Maya creating increasingly elaborate acts for the stuffed animals, and Clara participating with small sounds, a whistle for a bird, a vroom for a toy car. Maya had recruited even a tiny meow for a stuffed cat. Each sound was quiet, tentative, but intentional. Clara was choosing to make noise, choosing to participate, choosing to play. As the afternoon wore on, the girls moved inside for snacks. Maya had convinced Daniel to make rainbow sandwiches, which turned out to be regular sandwiches with food coloring added to the cream cheese, resulting in a somewhat unappetizing but thoroughly exciting array of colors. Blue food tastes more adventurous, Maya explained seriously to Clara. It's science. Well, it's not science, but it should be. Clara nodded solemnly and took a bite of her blue sandwich, her nose wrinkling slightly at the strange visual, but she kept eating. You know what we should do? Maya said suddenly. We should make a communication system. Like, since you don't like talking with words, yet we could have signals and sounds and stuff. Like pulling your ear could mean you're hungry, and tapping your nose could mean you need the bathroom, and humming could mean you're happy. Clara considered this, then pointed at the humming suggestion and nodded. You like humming for happy. That's perfect. And maybe... Maya thought hard. Maybe clapping once could mean yes, and twice could mean no. Or is that too complicated? We could just do thumbs up and thumbs down, but that seems boring. Clara held up one finger, then clapped once. One clap for yes, I love it. What about no? Clara thought for a moment, then shook her head with exaggerated movement. Just shaking your head for no classic, I like it. They spent the next half hour developing their system, with Maya writing everything down in her butterfly notebook with careful if slightly crooked letters. Clara contributed suggestions through gestures and demonstrations, and soon they had a complex but functional system of communication that was uniquely theirs. Watching them, Sophia felt something loosen in her chest. This was what Clara needed, not another therapist trying to fix her, but a friend who met her where she was and made it an adventure rather than a disability. They're pretty amazing together, Daniel said softly. Maya doesn't treat her like she's broken. That's because Maya doesn't see broken. She just sees different. Last year, she made friends with a kid in a wheelchair and spent 3 weeks trying to figure out how to make her own chair have wheels because she thought it looked fun. She's extraordinary. She's also exhausting. Daniel laughed. Last night she asked me what would happen if gravity went sideways instead of down. We spent 2 hours researching it and drawing pictures of sideways cities. Clara used to ask questions like that, Sophia said wistfully. She once asked if shadows were lonely when their people went inside. That's beautiful and heartbreaking. She was such a thoughtful child. She is a thoughtful child. Sophia corrected herself firmly. The same kid is still in there, Daniel said gently. She just needs time to feel safe enough to come back out. As if to underscore his point, they heard a burst of laughter from the kitchen, both girls, Clara's silent laughter mixed with Maya's vocal joy. When they went to investigate, they found the girls had used the colored cream cheese to paint designs on crackers, creating edible art. Look, Maya said proudly. Clara made a butterfly, and I made, well, I'm not sure what I made, but it's very enthusiastic. Clara held up her cracker butterfly, and then very quietly, so quietly it was almost missed, she said, "Buh!" Everyone froze. Butterfly, Maya whispered. Did you say butterfly? Clara's eyes went wide with what looked like panic, and she shook her head quickly, retreating back into herself. It's okay, Maya said quickly. You don't have to say it again, but your cracker butterfly is beautiful, way better than my enthusiastic blob. Should we eat them? Clara nodded, relief visible on her face, and they ceremoniously ate their creations. But Sophia had heard it. That single-syllable "buh" that might have been the beginning of butterfly. The first attempt at an actual word in 18 months. The rest of the afternoon passed in a blur of activities, board games, where Maya narrated everyone's moves, a dance party, where Clara participated by swaying and occasionally clapping, and finally quiet time in Maya's reading nook, where Maya read aloud while Clara turned the pages. As they were preparing to leave, Maya had one more surprise. She handed Clara a small box wrapped in paper covered in hand-drawn butterflies. "I made you something," she said, bouncing with excitement. "Well, my dad helped because it involved scissors, and apparently I'm not trusted with scissors after the haircut incident, which we definitely don't talk about." "We talk about that one the most," Daniel muttered. Clara carefully opened the box to reveal a handmade book bound with yarn titled The Adventures of Clara and Maya, in Maya's enthusiastic handwriting. "It's our story," Maya explained. "But I made it like a real adventure because regular life is actually very adventurous if you think about it, right? And I left some pages blank so we can add more adventures as they happen." Clara hugged the book to her chest. Then, in a move that surprised everyone, including herself, she hugged Maya tightly. "I know," Maya said softly, hugging her back. "I love you too." In the car ride home, Clara sat in the back seat, looking through the book, tracing the crayon illustrations with one finger. Every few pages, she would make a small sound, not quite words, but expressions of interest, appreciation, joy. "Good day," Sophia asked, catching Clara's eye in the rearview mirror. Clara nodded, then held up the book and pointed to a page where Maya had drawn them as superheroes complete with capes and masks. "You like that one?" Clara clapped once, their new signal for yes, then hummed a few notes. "Happy," Sophia interpreted. "Me too, sweetheart. Me too." That evening, as Sophia was cooking dinner, she heard Clara in the living room with Professor Cuddles and the new book. She was reading it to the bear, using small sounds and gestures to tell the story Maya had created. Not words yet, but communication expression, the desire to share a story. Her phone buzzed with a text from Daniel. "Maya is already planning next Saturday. Fair warning, she wants to put on a play, with costumes and musical numbers. I'm not sure Clara knows what she's gotten herself into." Sophia found herself laughing as she typed back, "Clara would love it. She's reading Maya's book to her bear right now. Small sounds, but she's trying to tell the story." "That's amazing, really amazing." There was a pause, then another text. "Would you maybe want to grab coffee sometime while the girls are in school, just to talk about parenting stuff, or anything else?" Sophia stared at the text, her heart doing something complicated in her chest. Before she could overthink it, she typed, "I'd like that." His response was immediate. "Tuesday after drop-off. It's a date." She sent it, then immediately followed up, "I mean, not a date, just coffee, between friends, who are parents, of friends." "I knew what you meant." But for the record, either interpretation would have been fine. Sophia set down her phone feeling like a teenager with a crush, which was ridiculous. She was a CEO, a widow, a mother of a child with selective mutism. She didn't have time for whatever this was. But then she heard Clara in the living room making soft sounds of joy as she turned the pages of Maya's book and thought, maybe, just maybe, they were all finding their way to something new. Something that didn't erase the past, but didn't let it define the future either. That night, when Sophia checked on Clara before bed, she found her daughter already asleep, the book clutched in one arm and Professor Cuddles in the other. But on the nightstand was something that made her freeze. Clara had left her a note, not with words, but with pictures. A drawing of two stick figures, one tall and one small, holding hands. Above them a sun with a smiley face, and at the bottom, carefully drawn, a heart. Sophia picked up the drawing with trembling hands. Communication, expression, love. "Oh, sweetheart," she whispered to the sleeping child. "I love you too, so very much." As she turned to leave, she heard it soft but clear in the quiet room. Clara in her sleep said a single word, "Mama." Sophia pressed her hand to her mouth, tears streaming down her face. One word. One perfect, precious word spoken in the safety of sleep, but spoken nonetheless. Progress wasn't always linear, the therapist had warned. There would be good days and bad days, steps forward and steps back. But standing in her daughter's doorway, listening to her breathing and holding the picture Clara had drawn, Sophia felt something she hadn't felt in 18 months. Hope. Real, tangible, beautiful hope. The Tuesday morning coffee date arrived faster than Sophia expected. She changed outfits 3 times before settling on something that said professional but approachable, rather than trying too hard or gave up completely. The fact that she was overthinking coffee with another parent should have been amusing, but her hand still shook slightly as she parked outside the small cafe Daniel had suggested. He was already there, sitting by the window with 2 cups in front of him, reading what appeared to be sheet music. He looked up when the bell above the door chimed, and his smile was warm enough to settle some of the butterflies in her stomach. "I ordered you a latte," he said as she sat down. "Maya informed me very seriously this morning that Clara's mom drinks lattes because she saw you with one at pickup. If that's wrong, blame my 7-year-old intelligence network." "It's perfect," Sophia laughed, wrapping her hands around the warm cup. Though slightly concerning that Maya is that observant. She notices everything. Last week she told me Mrs. Patterson was sad because she was wearing her sad cardigan instead of her happy cardigan. Turns out she was right. Mrs. Patterson's cat was sick. "Clara used to be like that," Sophia said, then caught herself. "Is like that. She still notices everything, she just processes it differently now." "Tell me about it," Daniel said, and something in his tone made it clear he really wanted to know, not just making polite conversation. So, Sophia did. She talked about Clara's sleep-talking the single mama that had echoed in her mind for days. She talked about finding Clara reading to her stuffed animals with sounds and gestures. She talked about the morning she'd caught Clara humming in the shower, how she'd stood frozen outside the bathroom door, afraid to move and break whatever spell had made her daughter feel safe enough to make music. "Music is powerful," Daniel said thoughtfully. "In my work, I see kids who can't speak but can sing. Kids who can't remember their address but know every word to songs from years ago. The brain processes music differently than speech." "Is that why Maya sings everything?" Daniel laughed. "Maya sings because Maya believes life should be a musical. But yes, I probably encouraged it more than most parents would. When she was dealing with her mom leaving, she'd make up songs about her feelings. Couldn't talk about them, but she could sing them." "What did you do?" "Sang along when she'd let me. Made up harmonies. Sometimes the best thing you can do is just join them where they are instead of trying to pull them where you think they should be." Sophia felt tears prick her eyes. "I've been trying so hard to fix her." "She's not broken," Daniel said gently. "She's adapting. There's a difference." They sat in comfortable silence for a moment, watching people hurry past the window. The morning rush was dying down, leaving the cafe quieter, more intimate. "Can I ask about David?" Daniel said carefully. "You don't have to answer." Sophia took a deep breath. It had been months since she'd really talked about David to anyone except therapists. "He was taking Clara to her piano lesson," she began slowly. "I was supposed to drive them, but I had a conference call run late. David said it was fine, he'd take her. They were singing in the car. Clara told me that later in the hospital. They were singing 'You Are My Sunshine,' doing the harmony they'd practiced. A drunk driver ran a red light, hit them on David's side." Daniel reached across the table and touched her hand briefly, just enough to offer comfort, without presuming. "Clara saw everything," Sophia continued, her voice barely above a whisper. "She was conscious the whole time. She kept calling for David, but he was already gone. The paramedics said she was talking to them, telling them about the song they'd been singing, asking if her daddy was okay. She talked all the way to the hospital. Then when I had to tell her David didn't make it, she just stopped, mid-sentence. She was asking if Daddy would have a cast like hers, and when I told her, she just closed her mouth and hasn't spoken since." "Except in her sleep," Daniel reminded her gently, "and to protect Maya, and in sounds and humming. She's not silent, Sophia, she's just careful." The therapists say she associates speaking with the trauma, that her brain has decided words are dangerous. Maybe. Or maybe she just needs to find something worth saying again. Something that feels more important than the fear. Sophia looked at him, this man who was essentially a stranger, but who understood more than people she'd known for years. Like protecting a friend? Exactly like that. Maya has a way of making people feel like what they have to offer is exactly what's needed, even if what they have to offer is silence. How did you learn to see things that way? Daniel smiled ruefully. Lots of mistakes. When Rachel left Maya's mom, my first instinct was to pretend everything was fine. Keep Maya busy enough that she wouldn't notice the hole in our family. But kids always notice. She started acting out, having tantrums, the works. Then one day I found her putting on a show for her stuffed animals, playing both herself and her mother, having the conversation she wished they could have. What did you do? Became her audience. Every night she'd put on these shows, working through everything she couldn't say directly. Sometimes her mom character would come back. Sometimes she'd leave again. Sometimes Maya would yell at her. Sometimes she'd forgive her. I just watched and clapped, and slowly she started including me in the shows. Eventually the shows became conversations. That's beautiful. It was heartbreaking, but it worked. She found her way through it in her own time, in her own way. And now she's this incredible, exhausting, wonderful kid who talks enough for 3 people and isn't afraid of anything. Except vacuum cleaners, Sophia said, remembering. According to Professor Cuddles. Daniel laughed. That's actually true. She's convinced they're portals to another dimension where lost socks go to plot their revenge. They talked for another hour about everything and nothing. Their kids, their work, the challenges of single parenthood, favorite books, worst cooking disasters. Sophia couldn't remember the last time she'd had a conversation that wasn't about Clara's treatment or company business. It felt dangerously normal. As they were leaving, Daniel hesitated. There's something I should tell you about my work. I didn't want to mention it before because I didn't want you to think, but I actually specialize in selective mutism. At the center. Sophia stopped walking. You work with kids like Clara. I do. But I want to be clear, I'm not trying to treat Clara. I'm not offering therapy. I wanted you to know that I understand maybe more than most what you're dealing with. Why didn't you tell me before? Because you weren't looking for another therapist. You were looking for a friend for Clara. And honestly, I think Maya's done more good than months of therapy could. Sometimes kids need other kids more than they need adults with degrees. Sophia felt a complicated mix of emotions, gratitude, relief, a tiny bit of anger that he'd kept this from her, but mostly an overwhelming sense of being understood. Thank you, she said finally, for not trying to fix her, for just letting her be. She's going to find her voice again, Daniel said with quiet confidence. Maybe not in the way you expect, maybe not on your timeline, but she will. She's already starting. That afternoon, when Sophia picked Clara up from school, Maya bounded over with them, talking a mile a minute about their day. Clara helped me in art. We were making clouds with cotton balls, and Clara showed me how to pull them apart to make them look more real. And Mrs. Chen said Clara's clouds were the most realistic she'd ever seen and asked if she could hang it up in the hallway. Clara ducked her head, but Sophia could see the pleased flush on her cheeks. That's wonderful, sweetheart, Sophia said, and Clara looked up at her with bright eyes. Oh, and we practiced our communication system at lunch, Maya continued. Clara told me a whole story just with hand signals and sounds. It was about a butterfly that was actually a secret agent. At least I think that's what it was about. There might have been a dragon, too. On the drive home, Clara was more animated than usual, humming along to the radio and even doing small hand movements that might have been dancing. When they stopped at a red light, Sophia turned to look at her daughter and found Clara looking back, a question in her eyes. What is it, sweetheart? Clara pointed to herself, then made a heart with her hands, then pointed to Sophia. I love you too, baby, so much. Clara smiled a real full smile and then did something extraordinary. She took a deep breath, opened her mouth, and shaped a word. No sound came out, but her lips clearly formed love. Yes, Sophia whispered, tears streaming down her face. Love. The days that followed felt like watching a flower bloom in slow motion. Clara didn't speak, but she communicated more. She started leaving Sophia drawings every morning, stick figures doing various activities that seemed to represent what she hoped the day would bring. She hummed more frequently, sometimes even attempting melodies from songs she used to know. And at night in her sleep, occasional words would slip out: sunshine, butterfly, friend. Saturday's playdate at Maya's house had indeed turned into a theatrical production. Maya had written a play about two princesses, one who talked all the time, and one who was under a spell of silence, but could break it with the power of friendship. The lack of subtlety would have been amusing if it wasn't so sweetly earnest. "And you can be the silent princess," Maya told Clara. "Which is perfect, because you don't have to say any lines. I'll narrate everything. All you have to do is look royal, and maybe wave sometimes." They spent the afternoon creating costumes from old sheets and cardboard crowns, decorated with enough glitter to be seen from space. Daniel played the dragon, a role that mostly involved roaring and being defeated by friendship, while Sophia was designated the Queen Mother, who mostly sat on her throne, the couch, and looked regal. The play was objectively a disaster. Maya forgot half her lines and made up increasingly elaborate plot points on the spot. The cardboard castle they'd built fell over halfway through. Daniel's dragon costume, a green blanket, kept slipping off, but Clara threw herself into the role with an enthusiasm Sophia hadn't seen since before the accident, pantomiming elaborately and even adding sound effects, a gasp when the dragon appeared, a tinkling laugh when Maya's character told jokes, a soft "oh" when they discovered the treasure was friendship all along. "That was the best play I've ever seen," Daniel declared when they took their bows. "It's the only play you've ever seen that I wrote," Maya pointed out. "Still counts." As they were cleaning up the glitter explosion, a task Daniel muttered would take until the heat death of the universe. Maya suddenly grabbed Clara's hand. "Next week we should do a concert. You can hum and I'll sing, and our dads can play instruments." "I don't play any instruments," Sophia said. "You can learn the triangle. It's very important and underappreciated," Maya said seriously. That evening, as they were driving home, Clara did something she hadn't done in 18 months. She reached forward and turned on the radio, looking at Sophia for permission. When Sophia nodded, Clara found a station playing oldies and sat back humming along to "You Are My Sunshine," the same song she and David had been singing in the car that day. Sophia had to pull over her hands, shaking too hard to drive safely. Clara looked alarmed, reaching forward to touch her mother's shoulder. "It's okay," Sophia managed. "These are happy tears, sweetheart. That was Daddy's favorite song to sing with you." Clara nodded slowly, then very deliberately hummed the harmony line David used to sing. It was soft, uncertain, but unmistakably the same harmony. "He'd be so proud of you," Sophia whispered. So proud." They sat there on the side of the road for several minutes, Sophia crying and Clara humming the radio, playing songs from a simpler time. Finally, Clara reached forward and squeezed Sophia's hand 3 times, their old signal for "I love you" from when Clara was a toddler, and would squeeze it during long car rides. "I love you too," Sophia said, squeezing back. "Ready to go home?" Clara nodded but kept humming, and they drove the rest of the way with Clara providing a soft soundtrack to their journey. That night, Sophia heard Clara in her room talking to Professor Cuddles, not just sounds this time, but actual whispered words. She couldn't make them all out through the door, but she heard "scared" and "trying" and what might have been "daddy" and definitely "Maya" said several times with warm affection. She didn't go in, didn't interrupt. This was Clara's process, her journey. But she stood in the hallway and listened to her daughter finding her voice in the safety of her room with only a stuffed bear as witness. Sunday brought rain and the kind of cozy indoor day that used to be their favorite. Before, Sophia would have filled it with activities desperate to keep Clara engaged. But now she just let the day unfold. They made pancakes together, Clara pointing to ingredients, and Sophia narrating what they were doing. They built a blanket fort in the living room and ate lunch inside it like they used to when Clara was little. They watched movies, Clara curled against Sophia's side, occasionally humming along to the songs. And then during a particularly quiet moment in the afternoon while they were coloring together at the kitchen table, Clara pushed a piece of paper toward Sophia. On it, in careful, shaky letters, she had written, "I want to talk but scared." Sophia's heart stopped. Clara hadn't written words since the accident either, only drawn pictures. "Oh, sweetheart," she said carefully, trying not to show how monumentally important this moment was. "It's okay to be scared. There's no rush. You can take all the time you need." Clara picked up the crayon again and wrote, "Maya not scared of anything." Maya's scared of vacuum cleaners, Sophia reminded her with a small smile. Clara actually giggled a real audible giggle and wrote, silly. We're all scared of something, Sophia said. Being scared doesn't make you weak. It makes you human. Clara considered this, then wrote, you scared all the time, Sophia admitted. I'm scared I'm not being a good enough mom. Scared of making wrong decisions. Scared of lots of things. Clara looked at her with those serious eyes that seemed far too old for 7, then wrote, best mom. Sophia had to blink back tears. And you're the best daughter, no matter what. Whether you talk or don't talk, you're perfect exactly as you are. Clara leaned against her and they colored in comfortable silence for a while. Then Clara wrote one more thing, Tuesday, Maya, birthday. Sophia looked at her in surprise. Is it? How do you know? Clara pointed to herself, then to her ear, then made Maya's characteristic talking gesture with her hand. Maya told you. Sophia interpreted and Clara nodded. Well, then we'd better get her a present. Clara's face lit up, and she immediately began drawing what appeared to be gift ideas, books, butterflies, something that might have been a hamster wearing a crown. Monday afternoon, they went shopping for Maya's gift. Clara was decisive, pointing to a craft kit for making friendship bracelets, a book about a girl detective, and a stuffed butterfly that looked remarkably realistic. She also insisted through pointing and gesturing on getting a card that played music when opened You Are My Sunshine, of all things. You want to give Maya this one? Sophia asked, and Clara nodded firmly. That evening, Sophia watched Clara carefully write in the card. It took her almost an hour erasing and rewriting, but finally she showed Sophia what she'd written, Maya, best friend. Thank you for waiting for my words. Clara. That's perfect, sweetheart. She'll love it. Tuesday morning, Maya was practically vibrating with birthday excitement when they saw her at school. I'm 7 3/4 now, she announced, which is basically almost 8, which is practically 10, which is nearly a teenager. Clara thrust the gift bag at her and Maya's eyes went wide. For me, really? She looked genuinely surprised, as if she hadn't been dropping hints about her birthday for days. She opened the card first, and when the music played, her face lit up. It sings, cards can sing. Then she read Clara's message, and her eyes filled with tears. Clara, this is the best card ever. I'm going to keep it forever and ever and show it to my grandkids, except I don't have grandkids yet. But someday. She hugged Clara tightly, and Clara hugged back, burying her face in Maya's shoulder. Open the presents at home. Daniel suggested, appearing with coffee and the slightly frazzled look of a parent who'd been up since 5 a.m. with a birthday-excited child. But Dad, school first, presents later. That was the deal. Deals are hard. Maya sighed dramatically, but she carefully put the gift bag in her backpack. That afternoon, Sophia got a text from Daniel. Maya has declared this the best birthday ever. The butterfly is now named Clara Fly, and she's already made 3 friendship bracelets. Also, she's played the card approximately 47 times. Thank you for making her day special. Sophia showed the text to Clara, who smiled and did a little happy dance in her seat. You made your friend very happy, Sophia said, and Clara nodded, pride evident on her face. Wednesday brought a breakthrough no one expected. Clara had art class, and the assignment was to paint something that made them happy. According to Mr. Rodriguez, who called Sophia immediately, Clara had painted a picture of herself and Maya on the swings, and when he asked if she wanted to tell the class about it, she had stood up, walked to the front of the room, and held up her painting. She hadn't spoken, but she'd pointed to each element herself, Maya, the swings, the butterfly in the corner, and made descriptive sounds for each one. A whoosh for the swings, a flutter for the butterfly, and for Maya, she had made a sound like laughter. The whole class applauded, Mr. Rodriguez said, his voice thick with emotion. And Clara, she bowed, like it was a performance. It was extraordinary. When Sophia picked her up, Clara was carrying her painting carefully like precious cargo. Mr. Rodriguez told me about art class, Sophia said. I'm so proud of you. Clara held up the painting, then pointed to Maya's figure, then to her heart. Maya's in your heart, Sophia interpreted, and Clara nodded, then pointed to the whole painting and back to her heart. All of it. The friendship, the playing, the happiness. It's all in your heart. Clara nodded emphatically, then very quietly. So quietly, Sophia almost missed it. She whispered, happy. One word, spoken aloud. Not in sleep, not in crisis, but intentionally, deliberately to share a feeling. Oh, sweetheart, Sophia breathed. Yes, happy. Clara smiled and didn't speak again that day, but she hummed all the way home a melody that sounded like joy itself. Thursday was Maya's actual birthday party, a small gathering at the park with a few kids from school. Daniel had warned Sophia it would be controlled chaos, which turned out to be an understatement. Maya had planned every minute with military precision, including a treasure hunt butterfly face painting and a game she invented called Musical Emotions, where you had to dance according to feelings she called out. Clara participated in everything, using their communication system to interact with the other kids, who quickly picked up on the hand signals and sounds. By the end of the party, half the children were communicating in what Maya proudly called Clara speak. "Your daughter's amazing," one of the mothers said to Sophia. "My son told me she doesn't talk, but honestly, she communicates better than most kids who never stop talking." During the cake, which Maya had insisted be decorated with both butterflies and dragons, because why choose was something magical happened, when everyone started singing Happy Birthday, Clara joined in, not with words, but with humming, loud and clear and perfectly in tune. Maya stopped mid-bite of cake to stare at Clara in delight. "You're singing, Clara's singing." Clara blushed but kept humming, finishing the song with everyone else. When they got to the end, she even joined in the hip hip hooray, making the sounds, if not the words. "Best birthday present ever," Maya declared and hugged Clara so hard they nearly fell off the bench. That evening, Daniel walked them to their car, while the girls said goodbye, an elaborate ritual that seemed to involve multiple hugs and a secret handshake they'd developed. "She's getting there," he said quietly to Sophia. "Every day a little more." "The humming today. In front of everyone?" "I know, it's huge. She's feeling safer." "Safe enough to be heard." "I don't know how to thank you, both of you." Daniel looked at her with an expression she couldn't quite read. "You don't need to thank us. This friendship is as good for Maya as it is for Clara. She's never had a best friend before. Too intense for most kids, they say, but Clara gets her. And Maya gets Clara. Perfect match, really." There was something more he wanted to say, Sophia could tell, but Maya came running over, clutching the Clarafly butterfly. "Dad, Clarafly wants to have a sleepover with Professor Cuddles. Can Clara bring him over this weekend?" Daniel looked at Sophia. "What do you think? Ready for the next level of childhood friendship, the sleepover?" Sophia's immediate instinct was to say no, that Clara wasn't ready, that it was too much. But then she saw Clara's face, hopeful, excited, brave, and remembered what Daniel had said about meeting kids where they were instead of where we think they should be. "We could try," she said carefully. "Maybe start with a few hours in the evening." "Like a practice sleepover," Maya exclaimed. "Perfect. We can wear pajamas and eat popcorn and tell stories, and if Clara wants to go home, she can. But if she wants to stay, she can do that too." Clara looked at Sophia and nodded eagerly. "Saturday," Daniel suggested. "Saturday?" Sophia agreed, wondering what she'd just signed up for, but trusting that somehow it would be okay. Friday afternoon, Clara spent hours preparing for the practice sleepover. She packed and repacked a small backpack with Professor Cuddles, her toothbrush, even though she might not stay her Maya book, and after much deliberation a photo of her and David that she usually kept on her nightstand. Sophia found her sitting on her bed looking at the photo. "Want to show Maya your daddy?" she asked gently. Clara nodded, then pointed to the photo to herself, and made the sign they'd established for before. "You, before the accident." Another nod. Then Clara touched her throat and shook her head. Your voice went away. Clara nodded, then pointed to the photo again, specifically to David's smiling face, and her eyes filled with tears. "Oh, sweetheart, come here." Sophia pulled Clara into her lap, something she hadn't been able to do much lately, as Clara had been keeping physical distance. "Daddy would understand. He would be so proud of how brave you're being." Clara leaned into her and very quietly whispered, "Miss him." 2 words, 2 heartbreaking, precious words. "I miss him too," Sophia whispered back. "Every day." They sat like that for a long time, mother and daughter sharing a grief that had separated them, finally bringing them together. Saturday evening arrived gray and drizzly perfect weather for an indoor sleepover. Clara had been ready since 4 o'clock, sitting by the door with her backpack wearing her favorite purple pajamas with stars on them. When they arrived at Daniel and Maya's house, Maya flung the door open wearing pajamas that appeared to be at least 3 sizes too big and covered in dancing tacos. Clara, you're here. I've prepared everything I have, 17 different snack options, and 3 movies picked out, and I made a fort in the living room, and Dad said we can stay up until 9:30, which is basically midnight. She grabbed Clara's hand and pulled her inside, chattering nonstop about the evening's agenda. Clara looked back at Sophia once a quick check-in, then let herself be swept into Maya's world. Deep breath, Daniel said to Sophia, appearing with 2 cups of tea. They'll be fine. They could hear Maya in the living room explaining the architectural principles behind her blanket fort, while Clara apparently made adjustments that met with enthusiastic approval. She's doing so well, Daniel said. You both are. Some days I still feel like I'm drowning, Sophia admitted. Just less often now. That's progress. They sat in the kitchen listening to the girls play Maya's constant narration, punctuated by Clara's sounds of agreement or laughter. It was almost normal, almost like any other play date between best friends. Around 7, they had the popcorn and movie portion of the evening. The girls insisted the adults join them in the fort, which was barely big enough for 4 people, and definitely not designed for adult knees. This is cozy, Daniel said diplomatically, his head bent at an uncomfortable angle to avoid bringing down the blanket ceiling. It's perfect, Maya declared. Then started the movie something animated about a girl who could talk to dragons. Halfway through the movie, Sophia noticed Clara had dozed off her head on Maya's shoulder. Maya was still wide awake, providing whispered commentary about the dragon's motivation and character development, but she stayed perfectly still to avoid waking Clara. Should we take her home? Sophia whispered to Daniel. Let's see what happens when she wakes up, he suggested. She might surprise you. Sure enough, when Clara woke up near the end of the movie, she looked confused for a moment, then settled back against Maya and made a small, contented sound. You had a good nap, Maya informed her. You snored a little, but in a cute way, like a baby dragon. Clara smiled sleepily and made a soft, roaring sound that sent Maya into giggles. When bedtime officially arrived, Sophia was prepared to take Clara home. But Clara looked at Maya's hopeful face, then at the sleeping bags Maya had arranged on her bedroom floor, then back at Sophia. You want to try staying? Sophia asked. Clara bit her lip, clearly torn between wanting to be brave and being scared. Then Maya did something wonderful. If you get scared, you can wake me up, she said matter-of-factly. I'm very good at being awake in the middle of the night, and your mom is right downstairs, so if you want to go home, you can. But also Professor Cuddles and Clara Fly will be here, and they're very brave at nighttime. Clara took a deep breath, then nodded decisively. Are you sure? Sophia asked. Clara walked over, hugged her tightly, then went back to Maya and climbed into the sleeping bag. I'll be right downstairs, Sophia said, her voice only slightly shaky. You can come get me any time. Clara gave her a thumbs up, their signal for I'm okay, and Maya immediately launched into a story about butterfly secret agents who solved crimes in the dark. Downstairs, Sophia sat with Daniel, both of them listening to Maya's storytelling gradually wind down into sleepy murmuring, then silence. She's staying, Sophia said somewhat in awe. She's having a sleepover. Kids are resilient, no, Daniel said. Sometimes more than we give them credit for. They talked quietly for hours about everything and nothing, about their children, their fears, their hopes, about movies they wanted to see and books they'd read, about the strange journey of single parenthood and the unexpected places it took you. Around 11, Sophia heard footsteps on the stairs. Her heart sank. Clara must be ready to go home, but it was Maya who appeared looking worried. Clara's crying, she said simply. Not loud crying, quiet crying. I asked if she wanted her mom, but she shook her head. I don't know what to do. Sophia started to stand, but Daniel touched her arm. Let me try something. He looked at Maya. Is she scared or sad? Maya considered this. Sad, I think. She was looking at a picture, the photo of David. Sophia's heart clenched. "Can you bring her down here?" Daniel asked Maya. "Tell her we're having midnight hot chocolate." Maya brightened and ran back upstairs. A moment later, she reappeared holding Clara's hand. Clara's face was tear-stained, and she was clutching the photo of David. Without saying anything, Daniel went to the kitchen and started making hot chocolate, the real kind with milk and cocoa powder and tiny marshmallows. Maya sat beside Clara on the couch, not talking for once, just being present. When Daniel brought the hot chocolate, he sat on Clara's other side. "Sometimes," he said conversationally, as if midnight hot chocolate with crying children was perfectly normal. "When Maya misses her mom extra much, we have hot chocolate and tell happy stories about her. Even though she's not here, the stories help us remember the good parts." Clara looked at him, then at the photo in her hands. "Is that your dad?" Maya asked gently. Clara nodded. "He looks nice. He has a kind smile. Do you want to tell us a happy story about him? You don't have to use words. You could draw it or act it out, or use Clara speak." Clara was still for a long moment. Then she set down her hot chocolate, stood up, and began to pantomime. She pretended to play piano, her fingers moving over invisible keys. Then she stood and conducted an invisible orchestra, her face serious and focused. Then she pointed to herself and repeated the piano playing, but this time with exaggerated mistakes hitting wrong notes. She then showed someone David clearly sitting beside her, guiding her hands, both of them laughing. "He taught you piano," Maya interpreted, and Clara nodded. "And you made mistakes, but he didn't mind," Daniel added, and Clara nodded again, a small smile on her face. She continued the story in gestures, showing how David would make up silly songs, how they'd have dance parties in the kitchen, how he'd read to her with different voices for each character. With each memory she shared, her face relaxed a little more. "He sounds wonderful," Sophia said softly, her own tears falling freely now. Clara came over and climbed into her mother's lap, something she hadn't done in months. Then she did something extraordinary. She opened her mouth, and in a voice creaky from disuse but clear, she said, "Daddy loved music." Everyone froze. Maya's eyes went wide. Daniel set down his mug very carefully. Sophia held her breath, afraid that any movement might scare the words away. "Music made him happy." Clara continued, her voice barely above a whisper, but definitely there. "Like Maya makes me happy." Maya burst into tears. "Clara, you're talking. You're really talking." Clara looked scared for a moment, like she might retreat back into silence, but Maya grabbed her hand. "It's okay." Happy tears. These are definitely happy tears. Keep talking or don't. Whatever you want. But Clara, your voice is beautiful. "It's scratchy," Clara whispered. "It's perfect," Maya insisted. "It sounds like you." Clara looked at Sophia, question and fear and hope all mixed in her eyes. "Maya's right," Sophia said, struggling to keep her voice steady. "It's perfect. You're perfect." Clara was quiet for a moment, then whispered, scared to talk. "Words got stuck after Daddy." "I know, sweetheart. It's okay." "But Maya needed me. At the playground, when boys were mean, words came back to help." "Because you're brave," Maya said firmly. "The bravest person I know." They sat there in the living room at nearly midnight, two little girls in pajamas and two adults trying not to sob, sharing hot chocolate, and the kind of moment that changes everything. Clara didn't say anything else that night, but she didn't need to. When she and Maya finally went back up to bed, she was humming the melody to "You Are My Sunshine," sweet and clear. "She talked," Sophia whispered to Daniel, still in shock. "She actually talked. She did. When she was ready, when she felt safe, when she had something important to say. I've been waiting 18 months to hear her voice again. And Maya's been waiting 7 years for a best friend who understands her." Seems like they both got what they needed. Sophia looked at him. This man who'd appeared in their lives at a playground and somehow helped them find their way back to each other. "Thank you," she said, "for everything." "You don't need to thank me," Daniel said softly. Watching Clara find her voice again, seeing Maya find her person, that's thanks enough. They sat in comfortable silence, listening to the girls giggling upstairs, and Sophia thought about how healing didn't always come the way you expected. Sometimes it came in the form of a chatty 7-year-old who didn't understand the concept of silence. Sometimes it came through butterflies and blanket forts and midnight hot chocolate. Sometimes it came when you stopped trying to force it and just let it unfold. Clara did stay the whole night, and in the morning when Sophia came to pick her up, she was greeted with a sound she'd almost forgotten, her daughter's voice scratchy and uncertain, but unmistakably there, saying, "Hi, Mama." Just 2 words, but they contained a universe of possibility. The week following the sleepover felt like walking through a dream Sophia was afraid to wake from. Clara didn't suddenly become talkative. Her words came in drops, not floods, but each one was precious. "Morning, Mama," when she woke up. "Thank you," at dinner. "Love you," at bedtime. Simple phrases that most parents took for granted, but that made Sophia's heart soar every single time. At school, word spread quickly that Clara had spoken. Mr. Rodriguez called it a breakthrough, though he was careful to manage expectations. Clara still primarily communicated through gestures and their established system, but now occasional words would slip through, usually when she was particularly engaged or emotional. "She answered a question in class today, he told Sophia on Wednesday. Out loud. Just 7 when I asked what 3 plus 4 was, but the whole class applauded. Maya had appointed herself Clara's voice coach, which mainly consisted of never making a big deal when Clara spoke and filling any silence with enough chatter for both of them. It was Sophia realized exactly what Clara needed: normality, not pressure. That Friday afternoon, Daniel texted Sophia, "Maya has a proposition. She wants Clara to help with her school talent show act. Fair warning, it involves costumes." When Sophia asked Clara about it, her daughter's face lit up. She nodded enthusiastically, then whispered, "What act?" "I don't know, sweetheart. Knowing Maya, it could be anything." Clara smiled a real full smile and said softly, "Fun with Maya always." 4 words strung together. A complete thought. Progress. Saturday morning, they arrived at Daniel and Maya's house to find the living room transformed into what Maya called a rehearsal studio, which meant she'd pushed all the furniture against the walls and hung a sheet as a backdrop. "Clara?" Maya bounded over, wearing what appeared to be a tutu rain boots and a cape made from a beach towel. "I've been thinking all week, and I know exactly what we should do for the talent show." Clara tilted her head, waiting. "A story. But not just any story. Our story about 2 friends, one who talks and one who listens, and how they save the kingdom with the power of friendship. You don't have to say anything if you don't want to, but maybe you could do sound effects or play music. Dad has a keyboard." Daniel emerged from the kitchen with coffee for Sophia. "She's been planning this since Tuesday. I've been relegated to prop master and sound technician." "What do you think?" Sophia asked Clara. Clara looked at Maya's eager face, then walked over to the keyboard Daniel had set up in the corner. She sat down, placed her fingers on the keys, and played a simple melody, the first few bars of "You Are My Sunshine." "Perfect," Maya exclaimed. "You can be the musical narrator, like in movies where the music tells you how to feel." They spent the morning working on Maya's script, which was mostly Maya talking, while Clara experimented with different musical accompaniments. Happy scenes got major keys. Sad parts got minor keys. And the dragon, because there was always a dragon in Maya's stories, got dramatic bass notes that made both girls giggle. "We need costumes," Maya declared after they'd run through the story 3 times. "Clara, what do you want to be?" Clara thought for a moment, then whispered, "Butterfly." "Yes, a butterfly who lost her voice but finds it again through friendship." "That's perfect. We can make wings." Daniel and Sophia were conscripted into costume creation, which involved more glitter than Sophia had seen in her entire life, cardboard wire hangers, and an unfortunate incident with a hot glue gun that Daniel would later refer to as the Great Finger Incident of Saturday morning. As they worked, Sophia watched Clara bloom under Maya's enthusiastic direction. She was speaking more single words mostly, but occasionally full sentences when she got excited. "Purple here," she said, pointing to the wings, "like Maya's favorite." "You remembered my favorite color." Maya was delighted. "Clara, you're the best listener in the whole world." "You talk good," Clara replied, which made Maya laugh so hard she fell over, scattering glitter everywhere. I talk good. That's the nicest thing anyone's ever said about my talking. By lunchtime, they had 2 costumes butterfly wings for Clara and what Maya called a rainbow queen outfit for herself, which was essentially every bright piece of fabric they could find pinned together in a way that defied both fashion and physics. We look amazing, Maya declared, admiring their reflection in the hallway mirror, like if a craft store exploded but in a good way. Clara giggled and whispered, messy but pretty. No, that should be our motto, the Messy but Pretty Club. After lunch, they performed their talent show act for Daniel and Sophia. Maya narrated the story of 2 friends in a magical kingdom, while Clara provided the soundtrack, switching between playing the keyboard and making sound effects with various instruments. Daniel had collected a triangle for magical moments, a drum for the dragon's footsteps, and a small xylophone for the butterfly's theme. The story was quintessentially Maya rambling full of plot holes and somehow absolutely perfect. When they reached the climax where the butterfly friend had to warn the queen about the dragon, Maya paused dramatically. And then, she said, looking at Clara, the butterfly found her voice. Clara stood up from the keyboard, took a deep breath, and actually sang a single clear note. Then in a voice still quiet but growing stronger, she said, "Watch out, Queen Maya Dragon, coming." Maya shrieked with delight, both in character and out of it. The butterfly speaks, "The kingdom is saved." They finished the performance with both girls taking elaborate bows, while Daniel and Sophia applauded enthusiastically. "Brava!" Daniel called out. "Encore!" "We can't encore, Dad. We only practiced it once all the way through," Maya said practically. Then to Clara, "You sang and talked. In the performance, Clara, you're going to be a star." Clara blushed but looked pleased. "Maya made me brave," she whispered. "No," Maya said seriously, "you were always brave. I just reminded you." That evening, as they were leaving, Maya gave Clara a folder decorated with butterfly stickers. "It's our script," she explained. "I wrote it all down so we can practice at home. The talent show is in 2 weeks. We're going to be amazing." In the car, Clara held the folder carefully like it was made of gold. "You want to do the talent show?" Sophia asked, trying to keep her voice neutral. The thought of Clara performing in front of the whole school was both thrilling and terrifying. Clara nodded, then said quietly, "With Maya, I can." That night, Clara practiced the keyboard parts on their old piano, the one David had taught her on. She'd refused to go near it since the accident, but now she sat on the bench running through the melodies she'd created, occasionally humming along. Sophia stood in the doorway, watching her daughter reconnect with music, with her voice, with the parts of herself she'd locked away in grief. The next week was a whirlwind of rehearsals, both at school and at home. Clara spoke a little more each day, though she still preferred gestures and sounds when she was tired or overwhelmed. The speech therapist was amazed, calling it one of the most dramatic improvements she'd seen. "Whatever you're doing," she told Sophia, "keep doing it." What they were doing, Sophia thought, was simply living. Not waiting for Clara to be fixed, but meeting her where she was, following her lead and letting a 7-year-old with rainbow socks and endless words show them the way. Wednesday brought a surprise. Sophia was in a board meeting when Patricia knocked and entered looking concerned. "The school's on line 1, she said quietly. "They say it's not an emergency, but they need to speak with you." Sophia's stomach dropped as she excused herself and took the call. "Miss Lane, this is Principal Morrison. I need you to come to the school. Clara's fine," she added quickly, hearing Sophia's sharp intake of breath. "But there's been an incident with Maya." Sophia found both girls in the nurse's office. Maya was holding an ice pack to her knee, tears streaming down her face, while Clara sat beside her holding her hand, and Sophia's heart clenched, talking to her in a steady stream of whispered words. "It's okay, Maya. Just a scrape. You're brave. Brave like butterfly." "What happened?" Sophia asked. The nurse explained that Maya had fallen during recess, tripping over her own feet while demonstrating a dance move for the talent show. Her knee was scraped but not seriously hurt. The real issue was that Maya was scared she wouldn't be able to perform. "I can't dance now," Maya wailed. "The talent show is ruined." "No," Clara said louder than she'd spoken in school before. "We adapt." Everyone looked at her in surprise, including Maya, who stopped crying. Adapt, Maya sniffled. Clara nodded firmly. You sit. Tell story sitting. I stand. Do movements. Together still. Like you're my dancing shadow. Clara smiled. Your butterfly shadow. Maya's face brightened immediately. That's even better than the original Clara, you're a genius. Daniel arrived then, looking harried. Maya, sweetheart, what happened to our conversation about watching where you're going? I was watching, just not watching the ground. I was watching the clouds because they looked like dragons. He sighed, but hugged her carefully. Of course you were. As they were sorting out dismissal papers, Clara did something that stunned everyone. She walked up to Principal Morrison and said clearly enough for everyone to hear, Maya is hurt. We go home now. Principal Morrison, to her credit, only paused for a moment before responding normally. Yes, Clara, you can both go home. Feel better, Maya. In the parking lot, the girls hugged goodbye, Maya being dramatically careful of her bandaged knee. We'll practice sitting down, she promised Clara. It'll be even better, you'll see. That evening, Clara was more talkative than she'd been since the accident. She told Sophia about the fall, about how scared she'd been for Maya, about how the words just came because Maya needed them. Words for Maya easier, she explained still haltingly, but with growing confidence. Maya needs me. You need her too, Sophia observed. Clara nodded. Different needs, both important. It was such a profound observation from a 7-year-old that Sophia had to hug her. You're growing up so fast, she whispered into Clara's hair. Had to, Clara whispered back. After Daddy. But Maya helps me be kid again. Thursday afternoon, Daniel called. I have a favor to ask. Would you mind if Maya and I came over this evening? She's insisting she needs to practice with Clara, and she's driving me slightly insane with her constant rehearsing. She's performed for the mailman, the grocery clerk, and 3 random dogs we met on walks. Of course, Sophia laughed. Clara's been practicing too. She's added a whole musical introduction. They arrived after dinner, Maya on crutches that she'd already decorated with ribbons and stickers. I'm injured but stylish, she announced, like a wounded but fashionable warrior. They sat up in the living room, Maya sitting on a cushion like a queen holding court, while Clara stood beside her with the butterfly wings they'd made. What followed was perhaps the most endearing performance Sophia had ever seen. Maya narrated with her usual enthusiasm, but remained seated using grand arm gestures to compensate for her lack of movement. Clara, meanwhile, had transformed. She moved gracefully around the room, illustrating Maya's words with dance-like movements, playing invisible instruments, and even adding vocal sound effects that grew more confident with each repetition. When they reached the part where the butterfly warns the queen, Clara didn't just speak, she proclaimed, Danger Queen Maya. Dragon approaching from the eastern mountains, we must unite the kingdom with friendship. It was the longest sentence she'd said since the accident, delivered with such conviction that even Maya stopped narrating to stare at her in awe. Clara, Maya breathed. That was perfect. Like professionally perfect. Like you could be in movies perfect. Clara blushed but smiled proudly. Practicing in mirror, she admitted. You practiced for me. Clara nodded. Want to be good partner. Maya deserves best. Maya's eyes filled with tears. Clara, you're already the best. The absolute best friend in the entire universe, and probably other universes too if they exist, which they probably do according to that science show Dad made me watch. Friday was the dress rehearsal at school. Clara wore her butterfly wings over her school clothes, and Maya had fashioned a crown from pipe cleaners that she wore with absolute seriousness. We're going to be amazing, Maya told Clara as they waited for their turn. Even if we mess up, we'll be amazing because we're doing it together. Clara squeezed her hand. Together, she agreed. They were not perfect. Maya forgot part of her narration and improvised wildly. Clara accidentally knocked over a music stand with her wings. The keyboard made a strange buzzing sound halfway through that nobody could explain. But Clara spoke her lines clearly, and Maya's joy was infectious, and when they finished, the other kids actually seemed impressed. That was really good, one boy said, especially the butterfly girl. She's like mysterious. Clara hid behind her wings, but Sophia could see her smiling. That evening, Sophia found Clara in her room carefully decorating a card. She'd drawn two figures, one surrounded by words and music notes, the other with butterfly wings holding hands under a rainbow. "For Maya?" Sophia asked. Clara nodded, then showed her what she'd written inside. "Thank you for waiting for my words. Thank you for being my voice when I had none. Thank you for being my friend. Love, Clara." "That's beautiful, sweetheart." "Want to say more?" Clara said, frustration creeping into her voice. "Words still hard sometimes." "The important words are there," Sophia assured her. "Maya will understand the rest." Saturday morning, the day of the talent show. Clara woke up with what Sophia initially thought was stage fright. She was pale and quiet, more quiet than she'd been in weeks. "Are you nervous?" Sophia asked, sitting on Clara's bed. Clara shook her head, then nodded, then shrugged. Finally, she whispered, "What if voice goes away again?" "Oh, sweetheart." Sophia pulled her close. "Your voice didn't really go away. It was just resting, healing, like when you scrape your knee and it needs time to get better. But what if... Then Maya will understand. Everyone will understand, and we'll just try again another time." Clara was quiet for a moment, then said, "Daddy would come to talent show." "Yes, he would. He'd be in the front row with the biggest camera embarrassing you with his enthusiasm." Clara giggled softly. "He'd cheer too loud. Way too loud. People would complain. He'd say, 'That's my girl,' even for tiny parts." Especially for tiny parts. They sat together, remembering David, and Sophia realized that for the first time they were sharing memories without drowning in them. "He's still proud of you," Sophia said softly. "I know he is." Clara looked up at her. "How you know?" "Because I'm proud enough for both of us, and I still don't think it's enough pride for how amazing you are." Clara hugged her tightly, then said with determination, "Do show for Daddy too." The school auditorium was packed. Sophia found a seat in the third row, saving one for Daniel, who was backstage helping Maya with her costume. Her hands were shaking slightly. She couldn't remember being this nervous about anything, including board presentations to hostile investors. Patricia had come along with several other people from Sophia's office who had been following Clara's journey. "We wouldn't miss it," Patricia said, squeezing Sophia's hand. The talent show began with the usual mix of acts: a boy playing violin, a girl doing gymnastics, a group lip-syncing to a pop song. Then Principal Morrison announced, "Next we have Maya Carter and Clara Lane with an original performance, The Butterfly and the Queen." Sophia's heart was pounding so hard she was sure everyone could hear it. The curtain opened to reveal Maya sitting on a decorated stool, her injured leg propped up, wearing her chaotic rainbow queen costume and crown. Clara stood beside her butterfly wings, catching the stage lights, looking ethereal and delicate but determined. Maya began, her voice clear and confident. "Once upon a time, in a kingdom made of words and music, there lived a queen who talked so much that sometimes her words bumped into each other trying to get out." A ripple of laughter went through the audience. Clara raised her arms, wings spreading, and began to move gracefully across the stage. "The queen had everything," Maya continued, "except a friend who understood her. Then one day a butterfly arrived in the kingdom. This butterfly was special. She spoke in colors and movements and gestures and glances. Clara performed a beautiful interpretive dance, her movements telling the story as clearly as Maya's words. When Maya described the butterfly's sadness, Clara's movements became small, withdrawn. When she talked about hope, Clara's arms lifted wings, catching the light. The queen didn't understand at first why the butterfly wouldn't speak. She thought maybe butterflies didn't know words. But then she realized the butterfly knew all the words. She was just saving them for when they mattered most. Clara moved to the keyboard that had been placed at the side of the stage and began to play the melody she'd composed, haunting and beautiful. It filled the auditorium with emotion. Then one day, Maya's voice dropped dramatically. A dragon came to the kingdom. Clara struck dramatic low notes, creating tension. The audience was completely silent, captivated. The queen tried to warn everyone, but she had used so many words that people had stopped listening. The dragon got closer and closer. All seemed lost until Clara stood up from the keyboard, walked to center stage, and in a voice that rang out clear and strong announced, "Until the butterfly realized that her friend needed her voice." Gasps from the audience. Sophia was crying openly now. The butterfly spoke. Maya exclaimed, her own voice thick with emotion. She warned the kingdom. She saved everyone. And the queen realized that words were precious, that sometimes the most important things are said with the fewest sounds. Clara and Maya looked at each other across the stage, and Maya said softly, "Not part of the script." The queen learned that listening was just as important as talking. And the butterfly learned that her voice, however quiet, however careful, was exactly right. Clara walked over to Maya, took her hand, and together they said, Clara's voice joining Maya's for the first time, and they lived happily ever after, different but together, loud and quiet, perfect friends, forever. The auditorium erupted. People were on their feet applauding and crying. Sophia couldn't see through her tears, but she could hear Clara and Maya laughing on stage, hugging each other as the curtain closed. Daniel appeared beside her, his own eyes wet. "They did it," he said in wonder. "They actually did it." "She spoke," Sophia whispered, "in front of everyone." She spoke. Backstage was chaos. Parents and teachers were congratulating the girls who stood together, Maya talking a mile a minute about the performance, while Clara nodded and occasionally added a word or two. When Clara saw Sophia, she ran over and threw her arms around her mother's waist. "Did it, Mama?" she said, her voice muffled but clear. "Did it for Daddy, too." "You were perfect," Sophia told her. "Absolutely perfect." "We were both perfect," Maya announced, hobbling over on her crutches. "Clara, we should do this professionally. We could tour the world." "Well, maybe after my knee heals and Clara feels like talking more, and I finish second grade because education is important." Everyone laughed, and in that moment, surrounded by joy and acceptance and friendship, Sophia felt something shift in her chest. The grief wasn't gone. It would never be gone, but it no longer felt like drowning. It felt like part of a larger story, one that included loss, but also love, silence, but also song endings, but also beginnings. The official results of the talent show didn't matter, though. Maya and Clara did win Most Creative Performance because they'd already won something more important. Clara had found her voice not all at once, not completely, but enough. Enough to know it was still there, enough to know she could use it when she chose to, enough to know that silence wasn't her only option anymore. At the celebration dinner afterward, at a pizza place that Maya declared the perfect amount of fancy, Clara stood up and clinked her glass of juice with a fork. Everyone at their two pushed-together tables, Sophia, Danielle, Maya, Patricia, and a few other friends fell silent. Clara took a deep breath, looked at Maya, and said in a voice that was quiet but steady, "Toast to Maya, best friend, saved my voice, saved me." She paused, gathering courage, then continued. "When I couldn't talk, Maya heard me anyway. When I was scared, Maya was brave for both. Thank you." She sat down quickly, blushing furiously, while Maya burst into tears and hugged her so hard they nearly fell off their chairs. "That's the nicest thing anyone's ever said to me," Maya sobbed. "Clara, you're making me use all my feelings at once." Daniel raised his own glass. "To friendship," he said simply, "the kind that doesn't need words but makes them possible anyway." "To friendship," everyone echoed, and Clara, smiling wider than she had in 18 months, whispered, "To friendship." Later, as they were leaving the restaurant, Maya on her crutches, and Clara helping her navigate the door, Sophia overheard their conversation. "Clara, Maya said, I know talking is still hard sometimes, and that's okay. You don't have to talk for me, but thank you for choosing to." "Choose for you," Clara replied softly. "Always choose for Maya." "And I'll always choose to listen," Maya promised. "Even though I'm really bad at being quiet, I'll always listen to you." They walked out into the evening air, two 7-year-olds who had found in each other exactly what they needed, one who filled silence with joy and one who made words precious by using them sparingly, but with perfect truth. Sophia and Daniel followed, watching their daughters navigate the sidewalk together, and Daniel said quietly, "You know, this is just the beginning, right? Of Clara talking. Of everything. These two, they're going to be friends forever. We're going to be watching them take on the world together for the next decade at least." Sophia smiled, thinking of all the playdates and sleepovers and performances and probably drama and definitely joy that lay ahead. "I can't think of anything I'd rather watch." "Me either," Daniel agreed. Then after a pause, "So coffee. Tuesday, to debrief about our brilliant, exhausting children." "It's a date," Sophia said, and this time she didn't correct herself. As they reached their cars, Clara turned back to wave at Maya and called out. Actually, called out her voice carrying across the parking lot, "See you Monday." Maya, "Can't wait." 4 words, "can't wait" and "see you Monday," that would have been nothing to most people, but were everything to Sophia. Her daughter had a future tense again, an anticipation of tomorrow, a friend to can't wait to see. That night, as Sophia tucked Clara into bed, her daughter said, "Mama, want to tell you something." "What's that, sweetheart?" "When I couldn't talk, I thought words were gone forever. Thought I broke them when Daddy died." Clara's eyes filled with tears, but she kept going. "But Maya showed me words were just waiting, waiting for right time, right person, right reason. And now," Clara smiled through her tears, "now I know words always there, just sometimes need rest, like butterflies in winter." "That's beautiful, Clara." "Maya says I'm poetic. Don't know what means, but sounds nice." Sophia laughed, kissing Clara's forehead. "It means you say things in beautiful ways, and she's right." "Mama," Clara's voice was getting sleepy. "Love you. Thank you for waiting for my words, too." "Always, sweetheart. Always." As Sophia turned off the light, Clara added one more thing. "Tomorrow, want to call Grandma. Tell her about show, with words. She would love that. Maybe just few words first. Build up. Whatever feels right, there's no rush. Maya says I have rest of life to talk. Says that's approximately 70 more years if eat vegetables." Sophia laughed softly. "Maya's very wise." "The wisest," Clara agreed, and then humming softly that same melody, "You Are My Sunshine," she drifted off to sleep. Sophia stood in the doorway for a long moment, listening to her daughter's peaceful breathing, remembering another doorway 18 months ago when she'd stood frozen, afraid Clara might never speak again. Now here they were, not at the end of the journey, but at a new beginning, one where words could rest and return, where friendship could heal wounds that seemed unhealable, where a little girl with too many words and another with too few could find in each other the perfect balance. 6 months later, on a crisp autumn afternoon, Sophia stood in the same spot at Willowbrook Park where it had all begun. The playground looked different in the October light leaves scattered across the ground in shades of gold and crimson, but the swings were the same, and so was the bench where she'd first met Daniel. "Mama, watch this," Clara called out, her voice clear and confident as she pumped her legs on the swing. "Maya taught me to go even higher." Sophia's heart swelled. Clara's voice had returned fully over the summer, growing stronger with each passing week. She still had quiet days, moments when words felt heavy in her mouth, but they were rare now. Most days she chattered with Maya, sang in the shower, and even raised her hand in class without hesitation. "That's wonderful. Sweetheart, be careful." Maya, her knee long healed, was on the swing beside Clara, narrating as always. "We're approximately 15 feet in the air, which in butterfly measurements is like 1,000 feet. Clara, tell your mom about the science project." Clara laughed, the sound pure and unrestrained. "We're doing butterflies, mama, life cycles, and migration. Mrs. Patterson says we can present together." They'd been moved to the same class at the start of 3rd grade, a decision Principal Morrison had made after seeing how they flourished together. Their teacher often said she'd never seen a friendship quite like theirs, one that had taught the whole class about different ways of communicating and being heard. Daniel appeared beside Sophia carrying 2 cups of coffee from the cafe across the street. It had become their Saturday tradition meeting at the park, while the girls played talking about everything and nothing. Their Tuesday coffee dates had evolved into dinners, then movies, then the quiet acknowledgement that they were building something together carefully and consciously. "They're planning world domination again," he said, handing her a cup. "Something about a butterfly sanctuary in the backyard." "Whose backyard?" "Both, apparently. They've drawn blueprints." Sophia laughed, leaning into his shoulder slightly. They'd been taking things slow, mindful of their daughters, of their complicated histories, but there was an ease between them now that felt like coming home. "Clara asked me something this morning," Sophia said quietly. She asked if Daddy would be happy that she can talk again. Daniel's arm came around her shoulders, a gesture of comfort that had become natural over the months. What did you tell her? The truth. That he'd be so proud of her courage, of how hard she fought to come back to us. That he'd love Maya for being her friend. That he'd want us all to be happy. Smart woman. She also asked if it was okay to be happy when someone you love is gone. Daniel turned to look at her fully. That's a big question for an 8-year-old. I told her that happiness and sadness can exist together, that loving Daddy and building a new life weren't betrayals of each other, that hearts are big enough for all of it. Also smart. Then she asked if you made me happy. Daniel raised an eyebrow. And Sophia smiled. I told her yes. Very much yes. Before he could respond, the girls came running over, leaves crunching under their feet. We have an announcement, Maya declared, bouncing with excitement. Clara nodded, her face serious but eyes sparkling. Important announcement. Should we be worried? Daniel asked. No, both girls said in unison, then looked at each other and giggled. We decided, Maya began, that since we're best friends forever and our parents are best friends. Are we best friends? Daniel whispered to Sophia with a grin. Shh, Maya scolded. Since you're best friends, we think you should make it official. Make what official? Sophia asked, though she had a sinking suspicion where this was going. Clara stepped forward, her voice steady and sure. You should get married, so we can be sisters. The adults exchanged glances caught between laughter and mortification. Girls, Daniel began carefully, relationships don't work quite like that. We know, Maya interrupted. We're not babies. We know you have to date and fall in love and all that stuff, but you already do that. Claire and I have observed. We took notes. Clara pulled out a small notebook, and Sophia recognized it as the one Maya had used for their butterfly observations. Evidence, she said solemnly, then began reading, Dad smiles different when Sophia calls. Mama hums again like before. They drink coffee but mostly talk. They laugh at same jokes. You've been spying on us, Sophia asked, trying to sound stern but failing. Observing, or Maya corrected, like scientists, and our conclusion is you should be a family, all of us. Clara took Sophia's hand, her small fingers warm and certain. Daddy would want us happy, she said, her voice wobbling slightly. He'd like Daniel. He'd love Maya. He'd want... She paused, gathering courage. He'd want us to be family again. Different family, but still family. Sophia felt tears prick her eyes. She knelt down, pulling Clara close. Oh, sweetheart. Is that silly? Clara whispered. No, baby. Not silly at all. Maya, never one to be left out of a hug, threw her arms around both of them. So is that a yes? Because we already planned the wedding. Clara's going to play piano, and I'm going to sing, and we'll both wear butterfly wings. And Maya, Daniel said gently, maybe we should let the adults figure out the adult stuff. But you take forever to figure things out. Clara didn't talk for 18 months, and even she figured out faster than you two that you should be together. Clara pulled back from the hug, looking at her mother with those serious eyes. Is it too soon, Mama? It's okay if too soon. Sophia looked at Daniel over the girls' heads. They'd been careful, so careful, but children saw everything, especially these two observers of the world. How about, Daniel said slowly, we make a different announcement. Sophia and I have been talking, and we think, maybe, if everyone's okay with it, we could all have dinner together. Not at a restaurant, but at home. Maybe cook together, eat together, like a family, Maya supplied hopefully. Like people who care about each other figuring things out together, Daniel corrected, but he was smiling. That's just family with more words, Maya said. Clara looked between all of them, then said clearly, I'd like that. Dinners together. Maybe not married yet, but practicing being family. Practicing? Sophia agreed, her voice thick with emotion. I think we could do that. That evening, they had their first official practice family dinner at Daniel and Maya's house. The girls made place cards with everyone's names in glitter because, of course, while Daniel and Sophia attempted to cook together, which resulted in only minor disasters and a lot of laughter. As they sat around the table, Maya raised her juice glass. "I want to make a toast." "Another toast," Daniel said. "You made 3 at lunch." "This is important, Clara, help me." Clara stood up beside her friend. No hesitation now. Together they said, "To second chances and new beginnings, to voices found and friends who listen, to families that choose each other." "When did you prepare that chant?" Sophia asked, amazed. "We didn't," Maya said. "Clara just knows what I'm thinking sometimes. It's our superpower." Later, as they cleared the dishes, Clara tugged on Sophia's sleeve. "Mama want to show you something." She led Sophia to Maya's room, where on the desk was a new book handmade like the first one Maya had given Clara, but thicker. On the cover in both girls' handwriting, it said, "The Continuing Adventures of Clara and Maya Now, with more words." "We're writing our story," Clara explained, opening it to show pages filled with drawings and text. "Maya writes some, I write some. About everything that happened, so we remember." Sophia flipped through the pages, seeing their journey documented in crayon and marker, the playground meeting, the first play date, the sleepover, the talent show, and newer memories too. The last page showed 4 stick figures holding hands under a rainbow with the words, "To be continued," written in Clara's careful script. "It's beautiful," Sophia said. "Maya says every good story needs an ending," Clara said, "but I think ours is just beginning." "I think you're right." Clara smiled, then said something that took Sophia's breath away. "I'm glad I lost my words for a while, Mama, because finding them again led us here, to Maya and Daniel, to being happy again. Different happy, but still happy." "Oh, sweetheart. Is that okay? To be glad about sad things if they lead to good things." Sophia pulled her daughter close, thinking about the winding path that had brought them here through silence and sorrow, through playground meetings and butterfly observations, through the slow, careful rebuilding of their lives. "Yes," she said softly. "It's okay to see the good that can come from hard things. That's not betraying the sadness. It's honoring it by choosing to keep living, keep loving." Clara nodded against her shoulder. "Love you, Mama." "Love you too, my brave girl." From downstairs they heard Maya's voice. "Are you coming back? Dad and I are going to play charades, and we need you because Dad's terrible at it. He just stands there like a confused tree." "I'm abstract," Daniel protested. "My charades are artistic," Clara giggled. "Come on, Mama. Maya needs us to win." As they headed downstairs to join their practice family, Sophia thought about that day 6 months ago when she'd sat on a park bench watching her silent daughter swing alone, feeling like they'd never find their way back to joy. She thought about Daniel's words about butterflies not being able to see their own wings, not knowing their own beauty. Now watching Clara demonstrate butterfly and charades while Maya shouted increasingly ridiculous guesses, and Daniel laughed until tears streamed down his face, Sophia understood. They had all been butterflies, unable to see their own transformation, their own journey toward healing. But together they'd learned to fly again. Clara caught her eye mid-flutter and smiled that radiant, unguarded smile that had been absent for so long, and mouthed the words that had once seemed impossible, "I love you." Sophia mouthed back, "I love you too." And in that moment, in a living room full of laughter and terrible charades, and the beautiful chaos of 2 families becoming one, Sophia knew that sometimes the best stories weren't about endings at all. They were about the courage to begin again, the grace to let love in after loss, and the miracle of finding your voice, whether through words or silence, through friendship or patience, through the simple, extraordinary act of choosing to heal together. Clara had found her voice, and in helping her find it, they'd all found something else. A future filled with possibility, a family built on choice and chance, and the unshakable belief that love in all its forms was always worth the risk. The butterfly had learned to fly again, and this time she wasn't flying alone.